Chapter 2247. As soon as the handsome man spoke, the two people in the sports car were blasted into a puddle of blood along with the car before they could even step out of the car. Not even their bones could be found. They had died on the spot just like that. If an ordinary person was standing here at this moment and saw this inconceivable scene, they would probably cry out in shock. It was a scene that defied all logic. When Yun Jian arrived, this was what she saw. The sports car in which Jian Ning and Jian Ning's adoptive father were sitting was suddenly left on the spot. The whole car was twisted like a rope. Just looking at it and imagining that there used to be people in the car was enough to make one tremble with fear. What was even more frightening was that the entire body of the sports car had been twisted like a rope, and bright red blood was flowing out of it. It looked extremely strange. Jian Ning and Jian Ning's godfather were already dead before she could come over? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes at the sight. Just as Yun Jian was about to go to the deformed sports car to check the bodies of Jian Ning and her godfather with her squinted eyes, a familiar masculine voice rang behind her. Xiao Jian. Yun Jian's slightly raised brows smoothed out at the sound of the masculine voice. She knew who was responsible for Jian Ning and her godfather's deaths. After the magnetic voice rang behind her, Yun Jian was pulled into a familiar embrace in less than a second. Feeling the warmth of the embrace, she relaxed and turned her back to him. Did you kill them? Yun Jian asked softly as she leaned against Si Yi's chest. At that time, Si Yi's hands had slipped from her waist naughtily to latch onto her fair and delicate hands as he replied curtly with a smile, You're right. Yun Jian's eyes dimmed at his reply, her red eyes quivering. I wanted to interrogate them to see if they were the mysterious person's subordinates. Yun Jian did not think that Jian Ning's godfather was just an ordinary immortal cultivator from Yulong mainland. That was why Yun Jian did not kill Jian Ning and her godfather at the gala. Yun Jian was never one to leave the root of the problem untouched. Whether Jian Ning and her godfather were truly remorseful or not, Reverse Emperor's existence was a foregone conclusion. And as the leader of Reverse Emperor, Jian Ning and her adoptive father, who founded Reverse Emperor, had to die. That man is indeed the mysterious person's subordinate, Si Yi answered when Yun Jian asked in confusion. There was a pause after that before Si Yi spoke again. Before he died, he said that he could find the mysterious person's hideout in Death Island that leads to thousands of continents. Jian Ning's godfather had put up a struggle before he died, and in the process, he had revealed a huge secret to Si Yi. In a sea area called Death Island in the Indian Ocean, there was a place that led directly to the hiding place of the mysterious man. Jian Ning's godfather had revealed this before he died, and Si Yi could tell that he was not lying. This was because when a person who was afraid of death was faced with the fear of death, in order to survive, even if it was a monstrous secret, it was possible for him to reveal it. What was more, Jian Ning's godfather was not a person who was not afraid of death. This Death Island was located on an island in the Indian Ocean. Why was the island called the Island of Death? It was because the Island of Death was a legendary island. It was said that the Death Island would only appear on the surface of the Indian Ocean at dawn. There would be thick smoke around the Death Island, which looked quite beautiful. Pleasure boats would be attracted by the smoke and sail to the shore of the Death Island. Legend has it that after sailing to the shore of the Death Island, the boats that were attracted to it would no longer be able to find their way back. Until they died, they would be trapped on the Death Island. That was the origin of the name of the Death Island. Of course, it was just a beautiful legend. But later on, someone came forward to prove that the Death Island was real. As early as 20 years ago, there was an old pirate who was drifting in the Indian Ocean with a group of his pirate brothers. According to his recollection, he and his group of pirate brothers accidentally entered Death Island. The old pirate did not say what happened on the Death Island. People only knew that he had been to the Death Island and somehow became the first person to leave the Death Island alive. When he was found, the old pirate kept shaking his head and repeating, Dead, dead, all dead. Death Island, all dead. Yes, the old pirate was crazy. 20 years ago, this incident caused a stir in the world. Since then, people had a deeper understanding of the Death Island in the Indian Ocean. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes when she heard that they could find the hideout of the Death Island. If Jian Ning and her godfather were the mysterious person's subordinates, then it would explain why Reverse Emperor was able to deal with the kosher mercenaries. Everything that had happened in his previous life, including the times when he was the sorcerer god and the times when he was targeted after his rebirth. Yun Jian was not a person who was willing to defend. The mysterious person had been arrogant for so long, and it was time for her, Yun Jian, to fight back. You want to go to the Death Island? Yun Jian looked up and asked Si Yi. Yes, he said in a muffled voice. I'll go with you. Yun Jian said firmly. After that, she held Siyi's slender hand and said solemnly, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. If you die, I'll follow you to the afterlife in life and death. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 2248. Before this, they didn't make solemn vows of undying love. They didn't say sweet nothings and swear that they would live a peaceful life together. They didn't even make a vow of loving each other for the rest of their lives. All they said was, if you live, I'll live with you. If you die, I'll die with you. They would live and die together. Any passionate declaration of love couldn't compare to a sentence like, if you die, I'll die with you. However, in this world, if there was someone who could live and die with you, then you must cherish him because there was no one else in this world who loved you more than him. Yun Jian did not know how to talk about love, much less say simple words like, I love you, that could be uttered easily. However, just because she didn't know how to say sweet nothings, it didn't mean that Yun Jian didn't love him. However, her love for Siyi was from the bottom of her heart. It wasn't a feeling that could be described with just, I love you. It was a love that could make her abandon everything and be ready to go to hell with him at any time. After Siyi heard Yun Jian's words, he was completely stunned. After being stunned for a while, he didn't say anything else. Instead, he hugged her even tighter from behind. He didn't say anything else. In the end, Siyi decided to head to Death Island 7 days later. Yun Jian also prepared to go with him 7 days later. Of course, whether or not they could find Death Island that was shrouded in fog all year round was another matter. However, this time Yun Jian was going with Siyi with the determination to die. For this reason, Yun Jian even took a year off from university. Because of New Cruise's backing, Yun Jian took a year off from school and the university immediately approved. On this day, Yun Jian came out of the principal's office. When she arrived at the school gate, Mo Bufan and the other members of the Martial Arts Society heard the news and all ran to the school gate to send Yun Jian off. Yun Jian, although I don't know why you suddenly took a break from school, I'll keep the position of president of the Martial Arts Society for you. Because only you are fit to be the president of the Martial Arts Society. Mo Bufan and the others sent Yun Jian to the school gate. Then Mo Bufan spoke up and solemnly said these words to Yun Jian. Only you can be the president of the Martial Arts Society. This was the recognition of Yun Jian by everyone in the Martial Arts Society. If I can come back alive, I must personally hear the news of your victory in the martial arts competition. Don't let me down. Yun Jian didn't say anything, only leaving this sentence. This sentence made the members of the martial arts club, who did not know what Yun Jian was going to do, even more worried. But at this moment no one asked. Yun Jian was not simple. At the same time, Yun Jian also had her own world. Chapter 2249. Yun Jian did not stay long in Xinjiang town. She had gone to Longmen City not long after she was reborn in the town. The person who had studied in Xinjiang town for close to 3 years was not her, but the original owner of her body. However, Yun Jian could still find memories of Yi Qingqing in the original owner's memory. In her memory, this girl named Yi Qingqing was a very ordinary student in Xinjiang town. She was also a good student in the teacher's impression. She usually listened to the teachers obediently and dressed elegantly. She was a typical student with good grades and was a model student in the hearts of the teachers and parents. However, the current Yi Qingqing was a little different from the model student who was obedient and had good grades in the original owner's memory. At that time, Yi Qingqing was wearing a more Western-style clothes. Her upper body was a button-up striped shirt, which was tight on her body, and her lower body was a short black skirt. She looked like a lady from the underworld. This was a stark contrast to the obedient Yi Qingqing who didn't even dare to speak loudly in school and didn't even dare to stand up when the teacher called her name in class. People changed. No matter how obedient a person was when they were young, they would change if they encountered certain circumstances when they grew up. Compared to the innocent and naive Yi Qingqing in junior high, the current Yi Qingqing looked more charming and mature. There was also an indescribable sense of vicissitudes. Yun Jian's eyes narrowed when she saw Dai Qingqing, but she gave a nonchalant reply. Dai Qingqing grinned at Yun Jian with pursed lips. What a coincidence that we can meet here. There was a hint of vicissitudes and desolation in the smile of an old friend who had met with an unforeseen event. Right, Yun Jian, why are you here? Don't you need to go to school? Dai Qingqing asked after she was done with her question. Yun Jian was supposed to be in her senior year, but she skipped a grade and was now in her first year. After Dai Qingqing asked, Yun Jian replied, I came back for something. She didn't say anything more. After listening to Yun Jian's words, Dai Qingqing didn't feel that it was inappropriate. She smiled at Yun Jian and then began to talk about her own matters in detail. I dropped out of high school and came to Longmen City to work alone. I met my boyfriend at the place where I worked. Dai Qingqing's boyfriend was very good to her. Her boyfriend had taken care of her for 2 years when she was working, taking care of her every need. Later, Dai Qingqing was moved, so she agreed to have a real relationship with him. However, the good times did not last long. 2 days ago, Dai Qingqing and her boyfriend got off work and met a few hooligans. Those hooligans saw that Dai Qingqing was good-looking and wanted to rape Dai Qingqing in front of her boyfriend. In the end, Dai Qingqing's boyfriend accidentally stabbed one of the hooligans to death, thus protecting Dai Qingqing's innocence. At the mention of this, Dai Qingqing's eyes teared up. He went to jail because of me. The court took into account that he didn't kill on purpose and that it was self-defense, so he's going to jail for 10 years. He went to jail because of me. I'll always be by his side. Even if it's 20 years, I'll wait for him to get out. It was only then that Yun Jian noticed the lunchbox in Dai Qingqing's hand. She knew without asking that Dai Qingqing must be here to deliver food to her boyfriend. Yun Jian and Dai Qingqing went to the prison to visit Duanling Tian. Dai Qingqing even invited Yun Jian to a nearby milk tea shop for a small gathering after they were done visiting. Yun Jian agreed. The door of Duanshi's prison opened and Yun Jian walked in. Duanshi looked much more refreshed than before. After 2 years of not seeing him, Duanshi, who was no longer drinking, looked more like a human after 2 years of rehabilitation in prison. Yun Jian's sudden entrance startled Duanshi. He glared at Yun Jian and exclaimed loudly, "Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version website. Chapter 2250. Have you forgotten? You'll be released from prison in a few days. I'm here to visit you on behalf of your daughter, Yun Jian said with a cold smirk. She was walking not far away from Duanshi, separated by a glass. Hearing that he was going to be released, Duanshi was stunned. Then he suddenly laughed. Without the violent aura he had when he first entered prison, Duanshi was actually quite decent. Perhaps it was because he did not drink too much these years, but the decadent middle-aged man who used to abuse Duanli and Duanya had disappeared. After laughing, Duanshi sighed and shook his head. He finally understood Yun Jian's motive. Hey, if you're here for Duanli and Duanya, you can go back now. I've turned over a new leaf. After I get out of prison, I won't interfere with their happy lives anymore. I'm not a good father. I've been in prison for 2 years. I've already thought it through. It was my fault back then. I actually did something like domestic violence. Actually, when their mother was still alive, they were my flesh and blood, my sweethearts. Duanshi was handsome and was a match made in heaven with Duanli and Duanya's father. Later on, Duanli and Duanya's mother passed away early, and Duanshi fell from grace. He became a rich woman's sugar baby. Not only that, he also drank and beat up Duanli and Duanya. However, after 2 years in prison, Duanshi finally realized his mistake. He regretted it. At this point, Duanshi wiped away the tears that were about to fall from his eyes. The wrinkles on his face, which was no longer handsome and had aged features, deepened. These 2 years made me understand a lot of things. After I get out of prison, I won't interfere with their lives anymore. As he spoke, Duanshi suddenly stood up and bowed deeply to Yun Jian. This was the most sincere gratitude from an incompetent father to Yun Jian after he had repented. If it were not for Yun Jian and the most appropriate education from the police station, he would still not know where he went wrong. Thank you. If I can repay your kindness in this lifetime, I'll do it even if it costs me my life. My 2 children. I hope you can treat them well. Let them forget about this incompetent father and start a new life. These were the last words that Duanshi said to Yun Jian. After saying this, Yun Jian ended the conversation with Duanshi. Yun Jian originally came here to confirm if Duanshi would still find trouble with Duanli and Duanya after he was released from prison. However, based on Duanshi's words, it seemed that he would not cause trouble for Duanli and Duanya anymore. As soon as she walked out, Yun Jian saw Yi Qingqing, who had just come out from visiting her boyfriend. Yun Jian, here. Yi Qingqing waved at Yun Jian and came over, flashing a bitter smile at her before she continued, I'm sorry, Yun Jian. I don't know if we'll have the chance to meet again in the future. Let's go to a nearby milk tea shop and get together. I'm actually already very happy. At least when I miss him, I can come and see him. As she spoke, Yi Qingqing left with Yun Jian and walked towards a milk tea shop not far away. Not long after they walked out of the police station, when they passed by a deserted area, a large group of people suddenly surrounded them from behind. This large group of people looked like hooligans, and each of them was holding something like iron rods and wooden sticks in their hands. After the leader led his men to surround Yi Qingqing and Yun Jian, he shuffled to Yun Jian and Yi Qingqing and blocked Yi Qingqing's path with a haughty look, waving his iron rod and hollering, "What the hell? Good little girl, I finally got the chance to catch you. Your boyfriend actually dared to kill our brother. Now that you don't have your boyfriend's protection, you're finished. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile reading website. Chapter 2251. Yi Qingqing was shocked when she saw the group of hooligans blocking their way. She never thought that not long after she brought Yun Jian out of the police station, the group of hooligans who wanted to do something to her a few days ago, and one of them was accidentally killed by her boyfriend, would actually make a comeback. In fact, the police station had given the most severe warning to this group of hooligans, and even detained them for a few days as a warning. However, this group of hooligans didn't hurt anyone after all. After they were released from prison, the more they thought about it, the angrier they felt. Today, this group of hooligans with iron rods and sticks found an opportunity to catch Yi Qingqing and a woman walking in a corner where no one passed by, and quickly rushed over. "You, what do you want to do? The police station is nearby. If you dare to mess around, I will." Yi Qingqing hugged her backpack and tried to scare this group of hooligans away with these words. But just as she finished speaking, the hooligan who led the group walked in front of Yi Qingqing with the iron rod. This little gun carried his iron rod and waited, then tilted his head and looked at Yi Qingqing with a sloppy look. That wasn't all, he even held his iron rod and patted Yi Qingqing's cheek with the iron rod, smiling wretchedly. "Yo, you're amazing. What if I'm scared?" As he said that, the leading hooligan put the iron rod back on his shoulder. He pulled the corner of his mouth and grinned. "I'm going to mess with you. I'll mess with you first. At most, I'll stay in prison for a few days. I'll die under a peony flower and be a romantic ghost. Brothers, cover her mouth and drag her to a corner. I want to be the first. I'll *CK this bitch to death. She actually dared to let me stay in prison for so long. Damn it. Brothers, hurry up and drag this bitch to a corner and take off her pants. Alright, didn't you bring a camera today? Shoot. Shoot with all your might. Make her angry. Damn it." The man spat out vulgarities and threw the iron rod in his hand to the ground. He tugged at his belt and looked like he was going to be the first to humiliate Yi Qingqing. When Yi Qingqing saw this scene, she was frightened, but she desperately winked at Yun Jian, meaning that Yun Jian should quickly escape while these gangsters did not notice her and then call for help. However, contrary to what Yi Qingqing thought, Yun Jian didn't run away. Instead, she lazily walked to the side of the gangster and picked up the iron rod that the gangster threw on the ground. The leader of the hooligans was busy unbuckling his belt with a wretched look on his face. Yun Jian walked over and picked up the iron rod that had been thrown on the ground. She smashed the head of the hooligan, causing him to see stars. *CK, who is it? Do you want to die? Just as the leader of the hooligans said this, he suddenly felt a chill on his neck. It turned out that Yun Jian had pressed the iron rod against his throat and looked at him with a sneer. That cold sneer made the hooligan tremble all over and his heart tremble for no reason. Just as the thug's heart skipped a beat and his expression changed, Yun Jian's clear voice that was laced with a hint of murderous intent rang abruptly. Her nonchalant and clear words caused the thug and the people standing beside him to quiver in fear. "Want to die? Do you know what happened recently in Jiangxing City? Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile reading website. Chapter 2252. Page 1/1. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The banquet held under the name of Rongyao Company was a global sensation. It was said that at the banquet, a young lady had faced off against an international assassin organization, Reverse Emperor, as well as over 50 experts gathered by their leader. She had killed all of them without any fear, and at the same time, wiped out the entire Reverse Emperor. No one in the underworld knew who the girl was, but after Reverse Emperor and the 50 international big shots were killed on the spot, the name of the mysterious girl became known to the public. Of course, the group of hooligans had heard of the girl's story as well. When they heard Yun Jian's words, their leader was stunned. "Oh, who are you?" The hooligan who tried to grope Yi Qingqing earlier glared at Yun Jian and asked loudly. Yun Jian ignored the hooligan's question. She had already put on the invulnerable leather gloves developed by Qing Yu and raised an eyebrow. Seeing Yun Jian put on a pair of genuine leather gloves that she had taken out of nowhere, the delinquent gulped and asked, "What's wrong with you? What are you trying to do?" Before the hooligan could finish his question, Yun Jian had already put on the leather gloves, a sharp glint flashing in her eyes. In the next second, as the hooligan's jaws dropped, their mouths forming an O, Yunjian's hands flashed and she disappeared. She was so fast that the hooligans could only feel that Yunjian was holding something that was reflecting a sharp light. By the time the hooligans reacted, Yunjian, who was holding the sharp object, had already flashed past them. She was so fast that she could not even be compared to the wind. By the time the hooligans reacted, Yunjian was already in front of them in a flash. Her back was facing the hooligans who were about to do something to Yi Qingqing. Her ponytail was tied up high and she looked spirited, her tight leather top and pants accentuating her perfect figure to the fullest. However, the hooligans' attention was not on her. Instead, Yunjian's hands that were placed at the seam of her pants were holding two shiny butterfly knives. Where's your hair? Where's your hair? At this moment, a hooligan standing at the side suddenly saw his brothers. Their hair was dyed in different colors and shaved in different styles. They were all shaved bald. The hooligan shrieked in shock. Shunzi, you're missing your hair too. Another hooligan pointed at the hooligan who was the first to notice. His shriek sent chills down everyone's spine. The hooligans quickly realized that their hair had been shaved bald by Yunjian with those butterfly knives that were so fast that they could not even be seen clearly. Yunjian's knife technique just now was actually so fast. The hooligans who realized this were all scared half to death. Imagine if Yunjian did not just cut their hair, but went a little lower and directly cut off their heads. Go quickly. The hooligan who was the leader was so scared that his face turned green. He covered his head and did not even care about unbuckling his belt as he took the lead to run away. In the end, after just 2 steps, his pants loosened and slid down to below his knees. After the pants slid down to below his knees, the hooligan was only wearing a pair of men's underwear in the middle of winter. The hooligan who was the first to say that he wanted to deal with Yi Qingqing tripped on his pants and fell to the ground. But he was so scared that he did not care about the pain. After standing up, he continued to run forward madly, looking as if he had eaten dog shit. The rest of the hooligans ran after the one who led the pack. A second before they left the scene, they could even hear Yunjian's chilling voice coming from behind them. You're right. You're right. You're wrong. You're wrong. Don't let me see you guys again. Next time it won't be your hair that I cut, but your heads. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2253. Just like the hooligans just now, they were scared out of their wits after Yunjian spoke. Yunjian kept her butterfly knife and said nothing more. Yi Qingqing could not help exclaiming at the sight. Nevertheless, Yi Qingqing was not too impressed by Yunjian's skills since she had dealt with Lin Mingyu back in Xinjiang Town Junior High School. Yi Qingqing, on the other hand, was deeply grateful to Yunjian. After a short gathering at a nearby milk tea shop, Yunjian went home and packed her luggage. She had agreed to meet Ce 7 days later, but before that, Yunjian had to go somewhere. Xiao Jian, you're going on a long trip again? Qin Yiru could not help asking when she saw Yunjian leaving the house with her backpack. Mom. Yunjian nodded. She did not say anything else. If Qin Yiru knew that her trip was extremely dangerous, Qin Yiru would definitely be worried. She might as well not say anything. Be careful then. After learning about Yunjian's identity as slaying god, Qin Yiru did not restrain Yunjian's actions anymore. When she heard Yunjian's words, she said nothing more. Yunjian nodded and left the house. After leaving home, Yunjian went straight to the airport and headed to Country S. Before she went out to sea to search for Death Island, she had something important to do. She had to confront the old pirate who was the only one who had been to Death Island back then. At the same time, in Deity Continent. It had been a few days since Gunyenji came to Deity Continent with Li Nong. Deity Continent was huge. Gunyenji had not seen anyone from Deity Continent even after wandering aimlessly for 3 days. At this moment, Gunyenji reached out to wipe the sweat on her forehead. She walked and stopped to ask Li Nong with a frown, I've been gone for so long, but I haven't even seen half of the deities of your god's continent. You're not trying to lead me astray, are you? The gods of the god's continent rarely go out, Li Nong said in a serious manner. If Huang Yin was here, he would probably roll his eyes at Li Nong. What the gods of God's continent liked to do the most was to gather a large group of people together and compete with each other to see who was stronger. Li Nong had indeed deliberately led Gunyenji to a place with fewer people. Are you serious? Then where is your home? Hurry up and take me to your place to rest. Gunyenji was about to throw up. At first, in order to come to the god's continent, she had even let Li Nong touch her butt and take advantage of her. Just thinking about it made Gunyenji regret it. He thought that there was something fun and delicious on the god's continent, but it turned out to be, "Hey, why don't you send me back? I don't want to stay on the God's continent anymore. It's not fun here. It's better to stay with Qingyu." Gunyanji was holding a weed that she had pulled out from somewhere. She pouted and swung the weed in her hand, walking like she would collapse on the ground from exhaustion at any moment. Li Nong said that one could not fly on the God's continent, or else there would be serious consequences. Gunyanji really walked behind Li Nong for 3 days and 3 nights, but they still could not get out of this godforsaken place. At this moment, both of them were walking in a boundless forest. Gunyanji walked forward unsteadily, sighing. However, just as Gunyanji lowered her head aimlessly, swinging the weed in her hand and walking forward lazily with a pout, she bumped into Li Nong, who had suddenly stopped walking in front of her. Gunyanji pounced on him, and Li Nong did not seem to be prepared to defend himself at all. Therefore, Gunyanji's pounce directly pushed Li Nong to the ground. At the same time, Li Nong turned around and fell on his back. Gunyanji did not see that Li Nong's lips curled up the moment he fell. Ouch! Gunyanji cried out in pain and fell to the ground. When Gunyanji came to her senses, she suddenly realized to her horror that Li Nong's hand was wretchedly grabbing her, but he even pinched it. It looked like he was doing it on purpose. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2254. Ah! By the time Gunyanji reacted, she was so frightened that she screamed and stood up. She protected her chest tightly and glared at Li Nong with bulging eyes. She bared her teeth and said to Li Nong, "Li Nong, you did it on purpose. It's not that there's no one at all. You did it on purpose. I want to go back to Earth." She should have known that a normal person wouldn't ask to touch her but before bringing her to the divine continent. Gunyanji instantly realized that Li Nong was most likely trying to take advantage of her. He was the kind of habitual offender who took advantage of girls. Pervert. Unexpectedly, after Li Nong stood up calmly, there was no change in expression on his serious face. He put his hands in his trouser pockets, and he didn't panic or fear when Gunyanji discovered his intentions. He simply turned his handsome face to Gunyanji and suddenly said, "You're right. This is the first time I've brought a girl back to the divine continent, so you can't leave. I've taken a liking to you, so you can't leave." On the other side, Yun Jian had already arrived in S country. S country was a developing country in China. The infrastructure of the city was poor, and the facilities of the 3-star hotels were relatively old. S country's economy was mainly based on agriculture, and the country's most important export product was Ceylon black tea. The country was also one of the 3 largest tea-producing countries in the world, so the domestic economy was deeply affected by the tea production situation. Of course, there were also some people in S country who relied on fishing for a living. S country was a country on the Indian Ocean plate, and the only old pirate who had been to the Death Island was from S country. The old pirate was now living in a mental hospital. Because he had suffered a great shock back then, he had become crazy. There were many adventurous people in the world who went to the legendary Death Island from S country, but most of them returned empty-handed. Generally, adventurous people who wanted to explore the Death Island would come to this mental hospital to ask the old pirate for information about the Death Island. Even if no one got any information about the other Death Islands from the old pirate, there were still adventurous people who came to this mental hospital to visit the old pirate and communicate with him, trying to get more information about the Death Island from the old pirate. After Yun Jian got off the taxi, she simply carried a decent backpack and went to the mental hospital. She looked up slightly and a dark light flashed in her eyes. In the next second, she walked into the mental hospital. Although this mental hospital was big, there were many people who came to visit the old pirate every day, so Yun Jian quickly walked in the direction with the most people and came to the mental hospital, the old pirate's ward. As expected, the old pirate's ward was filled with people. Even though 20 years had passed and the old pirate was already a little old man with white hair and beard, many people who loved adventure and excitement still insisted on coming here every day, trying to inquire about the mysterious Death Island from the old pirate. As soon as Yun Jian entered the room, she saw a little old man with white hair and a long beard. His eyes were dull as he sat on the bed in a daze. His whole body seemed to have been stimulated by something. Like a chick pecking at rice, his body trembled. From the looks of it, he seemed to be in a state of epilepsy. The old pirate's full name was Horace? Horace was the short name of the old pirate. At this moment, Horace was surrounded by people. The one who was half kneeling in front of Horace and asking about his well-being was a blonde woman in her 20s. The blonde woman was greeting Horace in fluent S-Nation's language. She wanted to get closer to Horace before she could get more information from him. Please remember the domain name of this book, .com. Wonderful book mobile version website, .com. Chapter 2255. Shui Shui. I want Shui 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 that's like milk. At this moment, Horace's body was trembling as he spoke in a trembling voice. His pronunciation wasn't accurate at all as he spoke those words with a trembling voice. The blonde woman who was half kneeling in front of Horace gave her companions a look. When the blonde woman's friends saw this, they quickly rushed to pass the water to the blonde woman, and the blonde woman passed the water to Horace. Come. This is water, be careful not to burn it. Drink slowly, old man. The blonde woman handed the water to Horace and patted him on the back. The blonde woman's group wasn't the only one present. There were many people standing by the side. Some were holding fruits, some were giving all sorts of delicious gifts to the old pirate Horace and saying all sorts of flattering words. Everyone's goal was simple and clear, and that was to gain the trust of the old pirate Horace, who had already gone mad, and get all the information about the Death Island from him. After receiving the water, Horace stared blankly at a certain spot on the floor. After receiving the blonde woman's hand, he didn't even look at it as he put the skull into his mouth with trembling hands. The way he drank the water was no different from a baby who was eating for the first time. Old man, drink slowly. Don't choke. The blonde woman patted Horace's back as if she were his own granddaughter. She spoke to Horace in a caring tone. Eva, are you done? Get up quickly. It's our turn. The other group of people who were standing by the side saw the blonde woman talking to Horace for so long and urged her to hurry up. Eva was probably the name of the blonde woman in her 20s. The name Eva matched the blonde woman's appearance. Yun Jian could see from the side of the blonde woman's face that her long face resembled a Barbie doll and was more tender. There were many people here who wanted to build a good relationship with Horace and force him to tell them the information about the Death Island. There were also many people who came here every day to serve Horace with good food and drink, trying to gain the trust of the crazy Horace so that Horace would tell them the secrets of Death Island. The blonde woman named Eva, as well as the group of people beside her, were all here for the same reason. What are you rushing me for? I'll be right there. Eva turned her head to look at the people who were urging her. She immediately roared at them in a low voice, completely different from the gentle tone she used to speak to Horace. She then turned to Horace and asked, "Is there anything else you need, sir?" Eva wanted to establish a good relationship with Horace so that he would tell her everything about the Island of Death. But just as Eva finished speaking to Horace with a smile, she suddenly saw a gorgeous girl from Z country walk in from the main entrance. She was so beautiful that no one could take their eyes off her. After stepping through the door, she went straight to Horace and looked at him coldly. She said bluntly to him, "What's wrong with you? You've been pretending to be crazy for 20 years. Even the mental hospital thinks that you're crazy. Mr. Horace, you're really something." The person who came was none other than Yun Jian. Once her words rang, everyone around her was stunned. Especially Eva, who had been flattering Horace all this time. Eva's expression froze for a moment. After a moment of shock, she immediately realized what Yun Jian meant. And Yun Jian said this after she had flattered Horace. Was she trying to make all her previous efforts go down the drain? Eva bared her teeth at Yun Jian and said angrily, "Please remember the domain name of this book, mobile version of reading website." Chapter 2256. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Horace looked at Yun Jian from the corner of his eyes in shock, awe flashing across his eyes. Horace, who had been mentally retarded before, now looked just like a normal person, no matter if it was his face or his expression. Eva, who thought that Yun Jian was spouting nonsense, was taken aback by the abrupt change in her expression. Everyone in the mental hospital's ward, including Eva's team members and the group of people who urged Eva to hurry up, were all stunned on the spot. Mr. Horace, just like what Yun Jian said, he's not really crazy but pretending to be crazy. After all, there were countless international medical experts who claimed to be world-class doctors. After diagnosing Horace, they all concluded that Horace had really gone crazy after returning from the Island of Death. After those international medical experts and world-class doctors had confirmed that Horace was really crazy, no one questioned whether Horace was really crazy or just faking it. Everyone thought that Horace was crazy and tried to trick him, trying to get information about the Death Island from him. Until today, when Yun Jian pointed it out in front of everyone. When he pointed out that even the international medical experts and doctors could not tell that Horace was pretending to be crazy, everyone present was in an uproar. Not only that, even Horace himself was shocked. He had been pretending to be crazy for 20 years. He thought that no one would be able to see through him in this lifetime, but he didn't expect that a young girl who looked like she was just 18 years old would be able to see through him in a single glance. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. They couldn't accept the sudden turn of events. At that moment Yunjian smiled coldly. She looked at Horace from the side. Under the gaze of Horace and everyone else, she replied to Horace with simple but arrogant words. Your eyes are different from those of a real crazy person. I can tell that you're faking it. As for those who claim to be world-class doctors, they're arrogant and pedantic. Naturally, they won't be able to tell that you're pretending to be crazy. After that, Yunjian went to Horace and sat down on a stool beside his bed. Squinting her eyes, she looked at Horace lazily from the corner of her eyes and spoke at the same time. So, you should tell us about the Death Island. After Yunjian finished speaking, even Eva, who was insulting Yunjian, shut her mouth and listened to Horace's reply. There was no doubt that the group of people present, including Eva, were all adventurous people. The Death Island was a terrifying place. Just hearing about it was enough to frighten anyone, but it was this place that made the adventurous people want to explore it. Therefore, after Yunjian's question, everyone perked up their ears. Sigh. After Yunjian's question, Horace sighed heavily. Under everyone's gaze, Horace shook his head and slowly said, The Death Island is very dangerous. Death Island? Is extremely dangerous. Back then, I almost died here with my friends. After that, I risked my life to escape from Death Island. I pretended to be crazy just to prevent adventurers from going to Death Island and losing their lives in vain. So, listen to my advice. Don't go to the Death Island. That was why the old pirate Horace pretended to be crazy for more than 20 years. He didn't want those adventurous people to lose their lives in the Death Island. Everyone in the room sighed deeply. Then, just when everyone took a deep breath and was hesitating if they should ask the old pirate Horace about the Death Island, a clear and pleasant female voice spoke again in front of Horace and everyone else. So, you're planning to let your old friends die in vain on the Death Island. You don't want to remember the past and find a chance to avenge them? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2257. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. When Yunjian finished her words, Eva and the others were stunned. What revenge? Could it be that when Mr. Horace and his friends accidentally entered Death Island, Mr. Horace and his friends lost their lives on Death Island? Because of someone? Eva was the first to react. She was stunned for a moment and she was shocked. As soon as she said this, Eva suddenly felt that something was wrong. No, Mr. Horace has been pretending to be a fool for 20 years. He shouldn't have told anyone about what happened on Death Island. How did you know? You're saying that Mr. Horace's friends died on Death Island? Revenge? Don't tell me you know what happened to Mr. Horace and his friends on Death Island? Compared to when she didn't trust Yunjian in the beginning, Eva's tone towards Yunjian had changed. However, since she couldn't explain it, Eva still questioned Yunjian. Don't tell me Yunjian knows what happened to Horace and his friends on Death Island? If she's so powerful she can just go to Death Island herself. Why would she ask Horace? Just when Eva thought that Yunjian was spouting nonsense, she saw Horace's expression change again. Then Horace's expression darkened. He looked at Yunjian and said in shock, I've never told anyone about this. I've never mentioned this to anyone. How do you know that my friends were killed by living people? Everyone saw Horace's astonishment. Hearing this, Eva and the people standing beside her were all shocked and dazed for a moment. Don't tell me she's right? You don't need to know how I know. You just need to tell me, do you want revenge? Yunjian pressed her lips together and asked Horace nonchalantly amidst the shocked gazes of the people around her. With that, Horace nodded without hesitation. Of course. Horace clenched his fists as if he recalled something that made him grit his teeth. He was so angry that every cell in his body was trembling. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people became even more suspicious. How did this girl, who was about 18 years old, know about everything that happened to Horace on Death Island? Before they could think further, Yunjian's lips curled and she spoke again. Then tell me how to get to Death Island. As thanks, I'll avenge you. Yunjian wasn't a good person. Her goal was simple. Just like everyone else, she wanted to know how to get to Death Island. Many times, if you were to ask someone for help, it would be easier and more effective to grasp the other party's heart than to give him or her 100 gifts. Yunjian was right. Yunjian was right. Horace was truly moved. Can you really avenge me? It had been 20 years, but he still couldn't forget what happened on Death Island. However, he had to force himself to forget the series of events that happened on Death Island. It wasn't that Horace didn't want to avenge himself, but he didn't have the strength to do so. Just as Horace said that, Yunjian's lips curled as she spoke to Horace solemnly in front of everyone, shocking them with her words. In the name of the medical world's hand of death, I solemnly swear to you that as long as you tell me where to go to Death Island, I'll avenge you. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 2258. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Although Yunjian wasn't a good person, she had never once made a promise to anyone. You're the hand of death. Just as Yunjian's words left her mouth, Eva and the group of people beside her were all shocked, as they screamed out in shock. The hand of death, of the medical world. No wonder. No wonder you could tell that I was acting crazy. So you're the hand of death, of the medical world. The legendary hand of the Grim Reaper that can even save the dead and bring them back to life. When Horace heard Yunjian's words, he was so shocked that his face changed as he looked at Yunjian with disbelief, his pupils constricted, his back straightened as he was filled with fear. So this little girl who looks like she just came of age, is actually the internationally renowned hand of death. Oh my God, what's wrong with this world? Is this a fantasy? One of the foreign lads in Eva's team, who was in his 20s with chestnut-colored hair, grabbed his head as he looked at Yunjian in shock as he screamed out in shock. This foreign lad with chestnut-colored hair was in the same team as Eva, and his name was Jie Wei. Jie Wei's looks were considered extremely handsome in the eyes of the foreigners. When Jie Wei heard Yunjian's words, he was so shocked that his face changed, as though he didn't believe Yunjian's words at all. After all, Yunjian was only 18 years old, and her looks were extremely youthful, and she was prettier than any other girl of her age. Such a beautiful girl would only make others think that she was a university student, an ordinary girl full of youthful energy. But who could tell them that she was actually the internationally renowned hand of death, the one who could save lives from the hands of the Grim Reaper, the strongest woman in the medical world? Whether it was the medical world or the underworld, there was no one who didn't know of her. And such an existence was actually just a young girl? Even so, no one present did not believe Yunjian's words. When everyone came to their senses, Horace took the lead and spoke calmly to Yunjian. I believe you. I'll tell you how to get to Death Island. 20 years ago, Horace was still a wandering pirate sailing the seas with his old friends. Once, when they were at sea, they accidentally picked up a bottle. That bottle was very strange. Not only did it contain a small piece of paper, it also contained a sky blue necklace. That sky blue necklace was very beautiful, so beautiful that it made people forget to breathe. It was also very strange. There was only one simple sentence written on the small note. Holding the necklace in his hand, he boarded the boat and entered Death Island. That necklace is the key to leading us to the Death Island. Although it's very mystical, as long as you can find that necklace and go out to sea, the necklace will lead you to the Death Island. As Horace spoke, he frowned slightly as if he was recalling a terrifying incident. He clutched his head with both hands. You know where the necklace is? This sentence, Yunjian did not use a question but a statement. Hearing Yunjian's words, Horace frowned slightly. In the next second, Horace loosened his frown. He smoothed out his wrinkled brows and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then he continued to speak. Yes, it's in France's Paris Museum. If you want to go to Death Island, you must obtain it. Speaking until here, Horace pondered for 2 seconds and suggested to everyone. With your abilities, you shouldn't be able to retrieve that sky blue necklace from France's Paris Museum. France's Paris Museum of Natural History is heavily guarded. If an ordinary person wants to steal the necklace, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. Perhaps you can use your computer to enter the page of an international assassin website and place a bounty on that international assassin website to request the help of an international assassin. Top reading website. M. Chapter 2259. As an ordinary person, Horace put himself in the shoes of Yunjian, Eva, and Jay. The sky blue necklace was now hidden in the Paris Museum of France as a valuable antique. It was one of the most important antiques in the Paris Museum of France. There were many people who went to the Paris Museum of France every day to look at the collection, but there was only one way to take the sky blue necklace out of the Paris Museum of France, and that was to steal it. Stealing was not a kind thing, but there were times when it had to be done, just like now. The sky blue necklace was the only way the old pirate Horace knew to lead them to the island of death. Of course, Horace knew that Yunjian was the hand of death in the medical world, but he didn't think that Yunjian was that strong. After all, as a doctor, it was her duty to heal the wounded and save the dying. A mission like stealing the sky blue necklace was something that Yun Jian couldn't do. As an international figure, if you wanted to assassinate or get something, you could log into the Secret Agent Killer website. The Secret Agent Killer website allowed the employer to post a mission. Once the employer posted a mission, the Secret Agent Killer would see the mission and accept it. Under normal circumstances, as long as the employer paid the price, the Secret Agent Killer would accept the mission. Therefore, if you needed something and you were rich but didn't have the strength, you could log into the Secret Agent Killer website and achieve your goal. Are we going to ask the Secret Agent Killer to help us steal the sky blue necklace? Why don't we just ask the International Thief Organization to help us steal it? Jay, who was standing next to Eva, said as he stroked his chestnut-colored short hair. International Thief Organization? Is it the internationally famous fox hunting organization? We don't know how to get to know them. How do we find the godly thief of the fox hunting organization? Someone frowned and asked. Don't worry. I know them. Leave it to me. Jay was waiting for the person next to him to ask this question. When he heard it, he stroked his short hair again and raised his head proudly. Jay was only in his 20s, and it wasn't strange for a young man like him to be a little arrogant. Yun Jian didn't stop him. Everyone agreed. Jiawei took out his phone and dialed a number. As soon as the call connected, Jiawei couldn't help but say, "It's me. I'm Jay. Hey brother, does your fox hunting organization have any godly thieves who can take on the task of stealing a sky blue necklace from the Paris Museum in France?" After saying that, Jiawei raised his head and looked at everyone. At that moment, the person on the other end of the phone seemed to have said something to Jiawei. Huh. Someone has already hired a thief from the fox hunting organization to steal that necklace. In the next second, Jiawei's expression changed drastically. 10 seconds later, Jay hung up the phone and said to everyone with a dejected expression, "I'm sorry. That sky blue necklace has already been stolen by someone who hired a first-class thief from the fox hunting organization. If we want to get that necklace, we'll have to hire one of the top 10 Secret Service assassins in the world to have a chance of competing for it. But the top 10 Secret Service assassins on the International Secret Service assassin list? How can they be hired so easily? I think this sky blue necklace. Sai, we won't be able to get it." Hearing Jiawei's words, everyone was depressed. The top 10 Secret Service assassins on the International Secret Service assassin list? How could it be so easy to hire them? They originally wanted to hire a high-level Secret Service assassin, but now someone actually hired a first-class thief from the fox hunting organization to steal that necklace. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2260. Page 1/1. The Fox Hunting Organization was an international organization of thieves. Compared to the Kosha mercenaries and the Inhun organization, the Fox Hunting Organization only accepted theft missions. Moreover, the Fox Hunting Organization had a success rate of 90%. This was a very amazing success rate. With such a high success rate, it could even be compared to the top 10 International Secret Service assassins. Of course, the Fox Hunting Organization was only good at stealing. As for some protection and assassination missions, the thieves of the Fox Hunting Organization would not accept them. The godly thieves in the Fox Hunting Organization were also divided into different levels. The Fox Hunting Organization divided the godly thieves into 6 levels. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, Level 4, Level 5, and Level 6. Level 1 Godly Thief was the strongest godly thief in the Fox Hunting Organization. There were only 10 people in the Fox Hunting Organization who could be listed as the strongest godly thief in the organization. At that time, Peter was a Level 1 godly thief in the Fox Hunting Organization. Therefore, a talent like Peter signed a 10-year contract with the Fox Hunting Organization. If Yun Jian did not appear, the Fox Hunting Organization would definitely not agree to let him go. Now that Peter had left the Fox Hunting Organization, the number of Level 1 godly thieves in the Fox Hunting Organization had increased to 9. Although there were only 9 Level 1 godly thieves in the Fox Hunting Organization, each of them was a world-class godly thief. Their standard of stealing was indescribable. It was rumored in the underworld that if the Level 1 godly thief of the Fox Hunting Organization were to take action, only those who hired the top 10 International Secret Service assassins would have a chance to compete with him. Take note, there is only this possibility to fight for it. After all, the Level 1 godly thief of the Fox Hunting Organization specialized in this line of work. His ability to steal was so good that even the top 10 assassins on the International Secret Service assassin list might not be a match for him. Unless slaying God, the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, was involved. Of course, how could that be possible? Therefore, when Yun Jian said those words, it was easy to imagine how shocked everyone was. A mere level 1 godly thief from the fox hunting organization? The level 1 godly thief of the fox hunting organization. Only those in the top 10 on the International Secret Service assassin list could match up to him. Although you're the hand of death, you're just a doctor. Don't tell me you have the strength to fight against the level 1 godly thief of the fox hunting organization? The one who spoke was Jie Wei. Jie Wei was proud to know the godly thief of the fox hunting organization. Now that he heard Yun Jian's words, he felt a little displeased. Even if she was the hand of death, no matter how powerful she was, wasn't she still just a scalpel? Could it be that he was strong enough to fight against the fox hunting organization and the godly thief? Jie Wei is right. You may be the hand of death, but you don't have the ability to fight against a level 1 godly thief from the fox hunting organization. If we can't get one of the top 10 international assassins to help us, we can forget about getting this sky blue necklace. If we robbed the sky blue necklace from the Paris Museum of Country F by ourselves, we might not even be able to enter the Paris Museum of Country F. That's right, Zhang Lixing said. After hearing Jay's words, Eva also stood up and said something. As they spoke, Eva expressed her disapproval of Yun Jian as well. The old pirate Horace shook his head. He knew that this plan would not work. When Horace was about to persuade Yun Jian to give up on going to Death Island, he suddenly saw Yun Jian lift up the corner of her long shirt. Without even looking, she coldly took out an M1911 pistol from her waist. Her other hand took out a few bullets and skillfully loaded them in front of everyone. In just 3 seconds, Yun Jian had completed the series of actions with ease before she pointed the gun at Jie Wei. As everyone looked at her in shock, she spoke with a smirk, "You're right, Jie Wei. A doctor can also kill. Since I have my eyes on this necklace, no one in this world can get it before me unless that person is a dead person." Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 2261. Lin Wei had wanted to give Yi Ling more time to accept everything, but it seemed like there was no need for that now. It was late at night. Yi Ling's moans only stopped when dawn came. This was a world that only belonged to the two of them. With you and me there was no room for a third person. Near the temple fair, Yun Jian brought Xiao Yunju, Duan Yi, and Duan Yi to buy a lot of their favorite snacks, much to the delight of Xiao Yunju and his friends. "Jieji is the best," Xiao Yunju exclaimed as he munched on a sugar-coated hawthorn. 10 seconds later, however, when Yi bought a big bag of lollipops for Xiao Yunju, Duan Yi, and Duan Yi, Xiao Yunju corrected himself. "Sigij is the best. Sigij is the best in the world." Yun Jian was rendered speechless. Suddenly, Duan Li pointed at a group of children who were about the same age as Xiao Yunju and Duan Li and told Xiao Yunju, "Xiao Zhu, look, those are our classmates." "It's them?" Xiao Yunju's eyes lit up at Duan Li's words. In the next second, he went to Yun Jian with a bag of lollipops and pushed Yun Jian gently into Siyi's arms. "Sigij, we're taking the lollipops. We're going to play with our classmates. Jieji will give them to you." As he spoke, Yunju dragged Duan Li and Duan Yao away. Yun Jian, on the other hand, blushed when Xiao Yunju pulled her into Siyi's arms. Siyi's lips curled up at that. He held Yun Jian's hand smoothly and pulled Yun Jian's back against his chest, placing her hand somewhere indescribable. Then he bent down and pressed his head against her hair, taking a whiff of its fragrance, and said suddenly, "Xiao Jian, you smell so good." Yun Jian's cheeks became slightly moist when she heard that. The fireworks show has begun. Those who came to see the fireworks, hurry to the bridgehead in front to see the fireworks. You can see the fireworks from the bridgehead in front. The big boss spent 200,000 yuan to donate the fireworks event, and it only lasted for half an hour. Everyone hurry up. This is a rare opportunity. Someone walked out and called out to the crowd. For a moment, everyone rushed to the bridgehead that the man had mentioned. Xiao Yunju was only a little over 10 years old, but Xiao Yunju and the other two were already very independent. Moreover, Xiao Yunju and the other two had their hands stuffed in their pockets. If there was anything, they would call Yun Jian, so Yun Jian was not worried about them. Once Yi heard that the fireworks were going off, he grabbed Yun Jian's hand and walked toward the bridgehead that the man had mentioned. When they came to the bridgehead, there were people standing around it. It was 6 o'clock. Creak bong, bong, bong. At this time, the sound of fireworks was heard, and it lasted for half an hour. Yun Jian squinted at the fireworks in the sky, her thoughts drifting far away. In her previous life, she had never dreamed that she would be able to return to a normal life one day. The ultimate outcome of underground assassins and secret agents was death without exception. The only difference was whether they died earlier or later. She was also prepared to die. What she did not expect was that she was reborn because of the sandalwood box. She even met him, the love of her life, the lover that she could give up everything for. She had thought that her life was just like the fireworks, that it would only last for a brief moment. When the fireworks bloomed, it was so beautiful that it was breathtaking. But after a few seconds, when the fireworks burned out, there was no more. It went back with the wind, amazed the world with a single brilliant feat, and then left the world silently. Just like her previous life, she could not see the future. But after her rebirth, everything was different. Even at the end of the world, there would be different fireworks. She Yunjian would protect all that she had obtained with great difficulty even if she had to die. The existence of the mysterious man made Yunjian panic, and it would affect the people she cared about. But when had she Yunjian ever been afraid? What was more, she had obtained all of this with great difficulty. How could she not dare to move forward because of a mysterious man? Yunjian would kill whoever stood in her way, no matter if it was a god or a demon. When the fireworks show ended, everyone was almost gone. The bridge, which had been bustling with noise and excitement, was now deserted. Under the bridge where no one could see, Si put his slender arm behind Yunjian's head as a pillow. His handsome lips tightly grasped the little mouth that made him want to touch her all the time. Yunjian also put her arms around Si Yi's neck and responded to his kiss. Just when the two were kissing and forgot about each other, an auntie who was sweeping the floor near the bridge suddenly saw the duo under the bridge. She looked like she had seen something terrifying as she sprung up in shock and pointed at the duo, shouting for help around her. "You're right. You're right. You're right. Oh my God, they are acting like hooligans in broad daylight. Come on, there is a wretched man who is going to rape the little girl." The thief and the thief and boy thief, the godly thief and was the thief. Thief is translation then, the thief and the thief. Cav's translation is Goggedly translation how translation to translation in. They didn't talk much and arrived at the Paris Museum in France as quickly as possible. The night of the stars ye the night. At 3 in dawn. Yunjian and Calvin arrived at the Paris Museum in France. As soon as he arrived at the Paris Museum in France, he saw a group of people using computers to connect a line and fiddling with something at the entrance of the museum. Looking closely, wasn't this group of people led by Jay and Eva? Among the group of people led by Jay and Eva, there was a very muscular man. Needless to say, this robust man must be a level 1 godly thief from the fox hunting organization. This group of people was using a computer to connect to the Paris Museum in France. They were using the computer to operate something. Their purpose was obvious. They were trying to cut off all the power gates in the Paris Museum. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2263. It was the Paris Museum in Country F. A museum with Paris as its name meant that it was protected by Country F. There were a lot of cultural relics in the museum, so there were a lot of tourists and many staff members in the museum during the day. At night, when the staff members were asleep, there would be a lot of people patrolling the museum, but there weren't many of them. That was because there were cameras installed everywhere in the Paris Museum. Not to mention the cultural relics, even the blind spots of the entrance were installed with cameras. Not even a fly was allowed to fly past the surveillance range of the cameras. The cultural relics in the museum were also illuminated by invisible infrared rays. The infrared rays were invisible to the naked eye, but once someone passed through and was illuminated by the infrared rays would send out a loud alarm. With that, everyone woke up. The Paris Museum was a very dangerous place. The most important thing to do in order to sneak in was to cut off the power switch and cause a blackout in the Paris Museum. However, they couldn't enter the power control room in the Paris Museum, so they could only connect to the power switch from the outside and use their hacking skills to hack the power switch in the Paris Museum. "Mr. Ling Feng, are you done here?" Jia Wei was so anxious that he was sweating. Ling Feng was a level 1 godly thief in the fox hunting organization. At the same time, he owed Jia Wei's father a favor, so he was here to repay the favor by helping Jia Wei steal the necklace. At that time, Ling Feng had hacked the power switch in the museum with his computer for a long time, but it still didn't work. Beginners could use their hacking skills to control computers and hack into large companies to steal money. However, people with strong hacking skills could even use it to hack the power supply of a large place or all the power supply of a large place. Those who were good could even use their hacking skills to make a large venue explode at any time. Of course, the latter could only be done by someone who had reached the pinnacle of hacker skills, such as hacking the power supply of a large venue and using hacker skills to cause an explosion in a well-arranged venue. In the words of the underworld, these were things that only the big shots at the top of the world could afford to play with. I still need an hour. The power and control room in the Paris Museum in Country F are too complicated. Don't rush. After Ling Feng heard Jia Wei's urging, he calmly moved the computer in his hand and continued to attack the Paris Museum's defense system with his not-so-skilled hacking skills. After Jia Wei heard this, he didn't dare to rush him. At that time, Jia Wei saw Yun Jian's group. Why are you here now? Could it be that she wants to take advantage of the time when Mr. Ling Feng is working hard to turn off all the power in the Paris Museum and take advantage of the opportunity to enter the Paris Museum with us? How shameless. When Jia Wei saw this, he didn't even think about it before blurting out these words. However, the moment Jia Wei said this, he saw Yun Jian walk around Jia Wei and walk in front of Ling Feng. What are you trying to do? Eva saw this and stood up to stop Yun Jian. However, just as Jay and Eva were looking at Yun Jian as if she was here to cause trouble, Yun Jian suddenly stopped. In front of everyone, Yun Jian spoke nonchalantly and arrogantly to Ling Feng, who was immersed in his computer. I'm not going to let you down. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 2264. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. Yun Jian's words were straightforward, and Yun Jian was standing in front of the godly thief Ling Feng. When Yun Jian's words rang out, everyone including Eva, Jia Wei, Calvin, Ella and Ling Feng were stunned. Yun Jian actually said that the godly thief Ling Feng from the fox hunting organization was so bad that it was suffocating. Ling Feng, who was called useless by Yun Jian in public, stopped what he was doing and turned to glare at Yun Jian when he heard what she said. Ling Feng did not stop what he was doing, nor did he retort with harsh words. It was as if he wanted to prove himself as he worked harder on the computer that was connected to the Paris Museum's circuit. Mr. Ling Feng, you can do it. Seeing Ling Feng continue to work hard on the computer, Jia Wei was delighted. He felt that Ling Feng would be able to break through the Paris Museum's circuit and achieve his goal. Yeah. Mr. Ling Feng, you can do it. After Eva heard Jia Wei's words, she raised her hands and stood behind Ling Feng, cheering him on. At that moment, Jia Wei, Eva, and the others had placed all their hopes on Ling Feng. Yun Jian also stood behind Ling Feng with her arms crossed. Ling Feng from the fox hunting organization was a man of few words, but if someone provoked him with words, he would not retaliate. Instead, he would use violent actions to prove himself. This was the personality trait of the fox hunting organization's godly thief Ling Feng. In the underworld, anyone who had the slightest connection with Yun Jian's identity as a special agent, Yun Jian knew the person's identity like the back of her hand. Identity, gender, personality, weapon, and so on. Yun Jian had purposely provoked Ling Feng with her words. As expected, Yun Jian's words had provoked Ling Feng to work even faster on the computer. No, I still need at least 45 minutes to cut off all the circuit gates in the museum. By the time I cut off all the circuit gates, Gui Ling would have already snuck into the museum and stolen the necklace. Ling Feng said as he continued to fiddle with the computer. If one took a closer look, they would be able to see that when Ling Feng said this, there was a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. Gui Ling must be the other godly thief from the fox hunting organization. At the same time, he must be the fox hunting organization's job and the godly thief who wanted to infiltrate the Paris Museum to steal the necklace. The power in the museum's art translation. Mr. Ling Feng, how is the other godly thief from the fox hunting organization going to enter the museum and steal the necklace before us? Mr. Ling Feng? Jia Wei heard Ling when he heard Ling's words, Ling Feng's words. Not everyone like you guys. Translation. Not everyone is the fox hunting organization. Not to translation. Yun Jian translation. Just, is Ling. Translation. Ling Feng translation. Of Jia Wei and the others were stunned when they heard Yun Jian's words. At the same time, Yun Jian was already standing beside Ling Feng. She looked at Ling Feng's computer skills and didn't stop him. Instead, she pursed her red lips and spoke. The words that came out of her mouth caused Ling Feng's pupils to shrink. Jia Wei, Eva, Calvin, Ella, and the others' eyes darkened. They were shocked that she had such a thorough understanding of the personalities and strengths of the fox hunting organization's Level 1 godly thieves. The fox hunting organization's Level 1 godly thief, Gui Ling, is good at hiding and moving like a ghost. His only flaw is that he is not strong enough to fight a strong opponent head-on. So, no matter how many cameras are installed inside and outside the museum, he can easily avoid them. The fox hunting organization's Level 1 godly thief, Ling Feng, is good at fighting head-on. He is strong and knows a little about hacking, but his biggest weakness is that he can't hide under all the surveillance cameras. He is only suitable for head-on battles. So, we must cut off the power in the museum and cut off all the surveillance cameras in order to successfully sneak into the museum. Ling Feng is what I said, correct? Translator, Tim. Editor, Tim. Chapter 2265. Yun Jian's words were not a question to Ling Feng, but an affirmation. After she said that, Ling Feng, who had been using the computer to try and cut off all the power in the museum, suddenly stopped when he heard Yun Jian's words. How did you know? All the information of the Level 1 godly thieves in the fox hunting organization is encrypted and sealed by professionals. Other than the few people at the top of the world, no one else knows about this. Ling Feng stopped what he was doing and turned around to look at Yun Jian. His face was full of shock and fear. All the information of the Level 1 godly thieves in the fox hunting organization was encrypted and sealed. Normal people would not be able to find out what the Level 1 godly thieves in the fox hunting organization were good at and what their weaknesses were. As a person in the underworld, the last thing they should do was to expose their weaknesses to others. Therefore, the fox hunting organization valued the information of the godly thieves in the organization. Once their weaknesses were exposed to the enemy, they would most likely die. Therefore, Ling Feng had just buried his head in the computer and did not mention why the Level 1 godly thief in the same organization, Gui Ling, was able to sneak into the Paris Museum. However, he did not mention that he was going to sneak into the Paris Museum like Gui Ling to take back the necklace. This involved Ling Feng's and Gui Ling's weaknesses. After all, Ling Feng and Gui Ling were godly thieves in the same organization. If the two of them exposed each other's weaknesses, it would not benefit either of them. Yun Jian had pointed out all of Gui Ling's and Gui Ling's strengths and weaknesses so accurately. This gave Ling Feng a great shock. It was as if he was naked in front of Yun Jian. This feeling made Ling Feng terrified. Mr. Ling Feng, I think she's purposely messing with your thoughts. Just ignore her. She wants to use your hands to reap the benefits. You can't let her have her way. Seeing that Ling Feng was shocked by Yun Jian's words, Jia Wei, Eva, and the others were also shocked. However, after regaining his senses, Jia Wei thought about it again. Just a moment ago, Yun Jian was acting so powerful and even said things like asking the useless Ling Feng to move aside. In the end, she didn't have any ability at all. She was deliberately pretending to know when she didn't know so that Ling Feng would think that she really knew. After Ling Feng successfully turned off all the electricity in the museum, he brought them into the museum. Then while Ling Feng was fighting with Gui Ling, he snatched the sky blue necklace before Ling Feng could. After saying that to Ling Feng, Jia Wei turned to Yun Jian and bared his teeth at Yun Jian. I'm telling you, I'm the one who invited Mr. Ling Feng here. When Mr. Ling Feng cuts off all the electricity in the museum, don't even think about going in with us. When Jia Wei said this to Yun Jian, he said it in a fierce tone. When Yun Jian heard Jia Wei's words, she sneered. It's time. Just as Jia Wei was waiting to see what Yun Jian would say to refute him, Yun Jian suddenly spoke up. What do you mean by that? Jia Wei was dumbfounded when he heard that. In the next second, Yun Jian took off her thick down jacket in front of everyone and handed it over to AI La. After taking off the thick down jacket, everyone saw that Yun Jian was only wearing a black tights and a pair of black leather pants. The black leather pants had 2 butterfly knives strapped to her thighs. 2 silver pistols were strapped to her waist and an eagle claw was strapped to her back. In an instant, she changed from a teenage girl to a secret agent assassin. Jay, Eva, Calvin, and the others couldn't help but be stunned when they saw this scene. Before anyone could react, Yun Jian leaped to the thick and tall wall almost within a second, barely avoiding the danger line. Before she left Jia Wei and the others with a soundless message that made Jia Wei puke blood in exasperation. Alright, I forgot to mention that I'm best at concealment. Surveillance cameras have no effect on me, so I'll be leaving first. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2266. Looking at Yun Jian's appearance, she was obviously fully equipped. And she actually said that she was also an expert in concealment. This meant that Yun Jian didn't even need Ling Feng to cut off the museum's power to enter. Yun Jian's words made Jie Wei so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. One must know that Jie Wei had been bragging about how Ling Feng could cut off all the power in the museum. But Yun Jian actually had the ability to avoid all the surveillance cameras in the museum. This meant that Yun Jian didn't even need Ling Feng to cut off the museum's power. And at that time, Yun Jian flashed into the museum after saying those words and disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Her speed was so fast that even Jie Wei, who had always been unhappy with Yun Jian, was astonished. Who is that little girl? She can actually avoid all the surveillance cameras like Gui Ling. Just as Yun Jian disappeared in front of everyone's eyes, Ling Feng said in a shocking tone. She is. Eva was just about to say that Yun Jian was the hand of death in the medical world. But before she could finish, Jie Wei elbowed her harshly. Jie glared fiercely at Eva, then spoke in a somewhat displeased tone. She's just an ordinary university student. Who could she be? Jie Wei said in a very unhappy tone. Obviously, Jie Wei was very dissatisfied with Yun Jian's identity as the Hand of Death. The legendary Hand of Death in China was actually someone like Yun Jian. This made Jie Wei unwilling to accept it and didn't want to believe it. Just as Jie Wei finished speaking, Ling Feng's incomparably shocked voice suddenly rang out, making Jie Wei, Eva, Text, Ella, and everyone else present suddenly tremble after hearing it. That's really incredible. Gui Ling's concealment, avoiding cameras and infrared rays is the strongest among the level 1 godly thieves in the fox hunting organization. Who is that girl? She actually has the same ability as the strongest level 1 godly thief in the fox hunting organization, Jie Wei. At that moment, Yun Jian had already avoided layers and layers of 360-degree surveillance cameras in the Paris Museum and quickly arrived at the outside of the Paris Museum. The Paris Museum was indeed an international museum. The surveillance cameras at night were installed. Even a fly would have a hard time flying past its range. But this wasn't a problem for her. Yun Jian was currently leaning against the wall of the Paris Museum. She was looking at the window on the 3rd floor of the Paris Museum. After gauging the height, Yun Jian took out the prepared eagle claw from her waist and held it in her hand. The eagle claw seemed to have a life of its own as she lightly swung it to hook the claw onto the window on the 3rd floor. She tugged on the rope that held her talon tightly. After making sure that the talon had hooked onto the edge of the window on the 3rd floor, she turned sideways and stepped on the wall. It took her less than 3 seconds to make her way to the window on the 3rd floor. He took out the iron wire that he had prepared beforehand from his hair and inserted it into the lock of the window on the 3rd floor. With a gentle tug, the window opened. She opened the window, jumped in, and closed the window. Yun Jian executed the series of actions smoothly without making any noise in the silent night. It took less than 10 seconds for Yun Jian to climb into the window on the 3rd floor from the wall on the 1st floor. Yun Jian had just climbed into the window on the 3rd floor when she heard a noise not far away. Her eyes shifted slightly and she rolled to the side to hide in the dark. At this moment, 2 soft male voices came from not far away and entered her ears. Someone just reported that an international thief came to our museum to steal the necklace tonight. Brother, which international thief do you think is so powerful to target us? It doesn't matter who it is. What's important is that no matter who it is, he won't be able to escape today. Moreover, our people have already protected the necklace. No matter how powerful the international thief is, he can't steal the necklace in front of so many Interpol officers. He's not slaying God, the #1 international secret agent. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2267. The 2 men's voices sounded, and there was a hint of teasing in their conversation. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Someone reported that an international thief had come to the museum tonight to steal the necklace? In other words, the necklace has been completely guarded by the Interpol? This would be a fatal blow to any international thief. However, after Yun Jian heard this, her eyes narrowed even more. At this moment in the museum hall, in a transparent glass safe, a string of sky blue necklaces was stored. The sky blue necklace did not look like jade. Just by looking at it with the naked eye, one could not tell what material this sky blue necklace was made of. However, the necklace emitted a pale blue light under the dim yellow light in the museum hall. The pale blue light seemed to have an innate magic that made people want to approach it unconsciously. The necklace was so beautiful that it made people forget to breathe. Officer Xing, can that thief really steal the necklace? At this moment, in front of the blue necklace in the center of the hall, A criminal police officer asked another criminal police officer who was obviously in a higher position than him. After hearing this person's question, the somewhat handsome criminal police officer, who was called Officer Xing, frowned tightly and immediately responded, "Yes, Officer Xing, as long as I'm here, no international thief can steal anything from me," Officer Xing said solemnly. Of course, unless they met that woman. However, 10 minutes after Officer Xing finished speaking, the power and lights in the hall were suddenly cut off. Seeing this, Officer Xing's pupils shrank, but he quickly reacted and turned around to rush to the location of the sky blue necklace. Protect the necklace. Immediately contact the relevant personnel to open the power gate. Officer Xing yelled at his subordinates as he rushed. However, just as he said this, Officer Xing suddenly noticed a figure flash behind the transparent glass safe where the necklace was locked. Stop. Officer Xing rushed forward, trying to stop the other party. But before he could catch up, the figure that suddenly flashed by had already disappeared in front of everyone. Damn it. He got away. Officer Xing saw this and did not chase after him. Fortunately, the necklace was not stolen. Officer Xing heaved a sigh of relief. He thought that the thief could not steal the necklace, so he gave up on it and left. After all, to steal the necklace under everyone's nose, it only took 3 seconds. In this world no one could do this. And he knew a person who could do this. However, that person, that woman, should not be here to steal the necklace tonight. Just as Officer Xing was thinking this, he suddenly heard his subordinates behind him shout in a terrified voice, "Xing, Officer Xing, that necklace, has been stolen." Yun Jian left the Paris Museum with light steps. Unlike when she came, she was now holding a sky blue necklace. The necklace's light blue glow in her hand. Not long after she exited the museum, she ran into Jia Wei, Ling Feng, Calvin, and others who had successfully made their way in. "That necklace? It's mine. Give me the necklace." Seeing the necklace in Yun Jian's hand, Jia Wei's expression changed. He wanted to rush over and snatch it. However, before Jia Wei could rush over, Ling Feng's expression changed. He stopped Jia Wei and seemed to have realized something was wrong. At the same time, Yun Jian lifted the necklace and waved it in front of Jia Wei. "Even if I give you the necklace, you won't be able to take it out of the Paris Museum." Yun Jian's words were ambiguous. Hearing this, Jia Wei's expression changed. "What do you mean?" However, just as Jia Wei finished speaking, a large group of Interpol walked over and surrounded Yun Jian, Ling Feng, and the others. Officer Xing, who was guarding the necklace in the museum's lobby, led a group of subordinates and calmly walked over to them. At the same time, beside Officer Xing was a young man in his late 20s. The young man wore a mask and was tall and thin. When Officer Xing and the young man arrived, Ling Feng's expression changed drastically. "Gui Ling you." Ling Feng looked at the young man beside Officer Xing and his pupils constricted. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2268. Good evening, Ling Feng. But soon you won't be able to get better. At that moment, the young man, who was Gui Ling, looked at Ling Feng and coldly said these words to Ling Feng. "Ah, Gui Ling, thanks to you, I was able to catch this group of thieves. Oh, right, there's also a level 1 godly thief from the fox hunting organization, Ling Feng. The harvest this time is really not bad." Officer Xing chuckled. It turned out that it was Gui Ling who reported that an international godly thief had snuck into the Paris Museum. Gui Ling had contacted Officer Xing long ago. In order to cooperate, Officer Xing would lend the sky blue necklace to Gui Ling and Gui Ling would help Officer Xing catch the international godly thief, Ling Feng. Gui Ling's employer only needed to borrow the necklace and return it after achieving his goal. Gui Ling saw Ling Feng, who was from the same organization as him, as a thorn in his side. He couldn't wait to tear Ling Feng into pieces. So this time he borrowed Officer Xing's hand and planned to catch Ling Feng in one fell swoop. While he was at it, he would also arrest the thieves, who came with Ling Feng. "Okay, the game is over. Who has the necklace? Hand over the necklace obediently. It's time to end this boring game." When Officer Xing saw the sudden change in the expressions of the people around him, he looked around with satisfaction and then spoke. Jia Wei, Eva, and the others who knew they had fallen into a trap were scared to death. What's going on?" Jia Wei's face suddenly became extremely pale. He was so scared that his face turned green. Just as he started to tremble, Jia Wei suddenly pointed at Yun Jian and said loudly to Officer Xing, "She stole that necklace. It has nothing to do with us. We didn't even do anything. If you want to catch someone, catch her." Being caught by Interpol was no joke. Especially with a thief like Ling Feng, it was something that could cost them their lives. Officer Xing glanced at Yun Jian and said rudely to Jie Wei, "Of course I'll catch her, but you guys, are you sure you dare to catch me?" Just as Officer Xing finished speaking, a melodious female voice sounded in front of everyone. Interrupting Officer Xing. Hearing this familiar voice, Officer Xing suddenly froze. When the surrounding people heard this, their hearts skipped a beat and they turned their heads sideways. Yun Jian, who hadn't said a word since the beginning, said coldly. Yun Jian's words attracted everyone's attention. Officer Xing glanced at Yun Jian. Although he felt that Yun Jian's words sounded a little familiar, he didn't think too much about it. With Gui Ling as his backer and the strength of his subordinates, Officer Xing spoke boldly. "Who are you? Why wouldn't I dare to capture you?" Sir, this woman likes to bluff the most. She clearly doesn't know anything, but she wants people to think that she knows everything. Go ahead and arrest her." "Arrest her?" Seeing this, Jie Wei rolled his eyes again and pointed at Yun Jian as he spoke to Officer Xing. However, just as Jie Wei spoke, Yun Jian turned sideways and faced Officer Xing with her delicate face. Her red lips curved slightly and then she said something that shocked everyone present. "So after not seeing each other for a few years, Officer Xing forgot the lesson from back then, forgot how your 156 elites died tragically, and forgot that you personally kneeled and handed the sandalwood box to me. Are you planning to go against me again? Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile reading website. Chapter 2269. In her previous life, when her younger brother was kidnapped, Langsha wanted Yun Jian to bring the sandalwood box to exchange hostages with him. Back then, the sandalwood box was very popular. Top international leaders and even some old guys who had been in seclusion for many years came out to fight for it. Some of them even hired top secret agents or mercenaries to fight for the sandalwood box even at the cost of their lives. And the sandalwood box was obtained by Yun Jian from Officer Xing rather than a fight. It was more accurate to say that Officer Xing personally knelt and handed the sandalwood box to Yun Jian. This Officer Xing was an international-level criminal police officer. His international status was very high because Officer Xing had captured countless international felons. He had even participated in the arrest of a very powerful 3S level wanted criminal back then. Back then, the sandalwood box fell into Officer Xing's hands. However, this sandalwood box had not been in Officer Xing's hands for long. Before Officer Xing could warm the sandalwood box, a terrifying woman appeared. That woman was Yun Jian. Back then, Officer Xing swore that he would never hand over the sandalwood box. Later, Yun Jian killed all 156 of his elites in front of him. In the end, Officer Xing was forced to kneel in front of Yun Jian in public and hand the sandalwood box to Yun Jian. This incident was the shame of Officer Xing's career. At the same time, it was also Officer Xing's nightmare. Officer Xing did not know who that woman was, but after that, whenever he thought of that woman, Officer Xing would wake up from his dreams. Therefore, in Officer Xing's heart, Yun Jian's behavior was not only the shame of his career, but more importantly, it was a nightmare that would make Officer Xing break out in cold sweat every time he thought of it. Originally, Officer Xing thought that the terrifying woman would never stand in front of him again in his life. He never expected, this woman actually changed her face and appeared in front of him again? Officer Xing was so scared that his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He looked at Yun Jian in horror and opened his mouth, but he was so scared that he could not say anything. What is this woman saying? She actually said that our handsome and brave Officer Xing personally knelt in front of her and handed that sandalwood box? Who does she think she is? Southern Sea Guanyin? Slaying God, the #1 on the international secret agent ranking? What a joke. This was really going to make people laugh to death. Officer Xing, let's quickly arrest this thief. An Interpol officer standing next to Officer Xing, who was also Officer Xing's subordinate, suddenly laughed out loud after hearing Yun Jian's words. When he was done laughing, he sneered at Yun Jian with a slightly mocking gaze and spoke with a smirk. Not many people knew that Officer Xing had knelt down and presented the sandalwood box to Yun Jian. At least no one knew about it now, including Officer Xing's subordinates. Hearing Officer Xing's subordinate refuting Yun Jian in such a tone, Jie Wei, Eva, and the others instantly breathed a sigh of relief. Especially Jie Wei. He rolled his eyes at Yun Jian. At first, he thought that Yun Jian would come up with some tricks to let him get away. In the end, even Officer Xing's subordinates didn't know her. Yun Jian was obviously putting on a show. After rolling his eyes at Yun Jian lazily, Jia Wei began to worry about his own situation. Was he really going to be arrested together with Ling Feng? However, just as Officer Xing's subordinate and Jia Wei finished speaking, the surrounding people suddenly saw Officer Xing looking at Yun Jian as if he had seen a ghost. His face turned pale and his lips turned pale. Then he looked at Yun Jian and said in horror, "Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2270. Officer Xing's lips trembled, and his rosy cheeks turned pale and weak. He looked as if he had seen a ghost. Officer Xing was a very calm and collected Interpol officer. For him to be able to sit in his position today, his strength and ability must be indispensable. And it was such an international police officer that after seeing Yun Jian, Officer Xing's expression changed abruptly. His lips and teeth trembled as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. "Chief Xing, you're..." The subordinate who rejected Yun Jian's request just now stared at Chief Xing blankly after his initial shock. "She's right. She's the terrifying woman who forced me to kneel and beg for mercy." Before Jia Wei could react, Officer Xing let out a huge sigh of relief and admitted it in front of everyone. After saying that, Officer Xing took a deep breath and turned to look at Gui Ling. He suddenly said apologetically, "Looks like our cooperation has to end. I can't afford to offend this woman. That necklace, if you have the ability, you can fight for it yourself." After saying that, Officer Xing looked at Yun Jian seriously and waved his hand. He waved to his Interpol officers and turned to leave. He didn't even arrest Ling Feng, Jia Wei, Eva, and the others. It seemed that Officer Xing would rather report the crime of losing the necklace to his superiors than continue the confrontation with Yun Jian. After a while, Officer Xing, who had been eyeing Ling Feng and Yun Jian covetously, led a group of Interpol officers and left faster than anyone else. Jane, Eva, Calvin, Ella, Calvin, and the others were all shocked when they saw this. Seeing this, Yun Jian didn't plan to stay. She hooked the sky blue necklace on her wrist and swung it. She turned around briskly and signaled Calvin and Ella to leave with her. Seeing this, Calvin and Ella weren't stupid. They planned to quickly follow Yun Jian and leave before Ling Feng, Jia Wei, Eva, and the others could react. However, just as Calvin and Ella were planning to follow Yun Jian and leave, a voice came and stopped Yun Jian from leaving. "Stop." Under everyone's gaze, Gui Ling, who didn't have the help of Officer Xing and the others, narrowed his eyes. He reached out a bony hand and smoothed the mask on his face. He then called out to Yun Jian in a strange voice. Hearing Gui Ling's words, even Calvin and Ella's heart trembled violently. Not to mention Jia Wei, Eva, and the others. Their faces changed as if they had seen something horrifying. At this moment, Gui Ling's voice once again sounded out. Within his words, there was a trace of coldness that caused one's heart to tremble. "Leave the necklace and you can leave. Otherwise..." Before Gui Ling could finish his sentence, Ling Feng looked at Gui Ling and spoke after Gui Ling finished his sentence. "Gui Ling, how dare you trick me? With me here today, don't even think about taking the necklace away." There were 3 groups of people who wanted to fight for the necklace. Yun Jian, Calvin, and Ella were in the group. Ling Feng, Jia Wei, and Eva were in the group. After Officer Xing left, Gui Ling was in the group by himself. The 3 groups were eyeing the necklace covetously. However, just as Gui Ling and Ling Feng were determined to get the necklace, Yun Jian's disdainful voice suddenly came. Her words made Gui Ling, Ling Feng, and the others tremble from the depths of their souls. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2271. Page 1/1. Yun Jian said as she lightly swung the sky blue necklace on her hand. The necklace hung on Yun Jian's index finger as if it would fly out of Yun Jian's hand if she wasn't careful. However, she maintained a leisurely and complacent expression from beginning to end. It was as if she was facing the threat of Ling Feng and Gui Ling, 2 first-class godly thieves from the fox hunting organization. She did not feel the slightest bit of panic or fear. "Mr. Ling Feng, didn't you say that you're an expert in direct combat and that you're strong? Let's defeat that woman and the other first-level thief and take the necklace." Jia Wei suggested quickly, remembering that Yun Jian had mentioned Ling Feng's prowess back then. The woman was, of course, Yun Jian. To Jia Wei nothing else mattered. The most important thing was for Ling Feng to take the necklace back from Yun Jian's hands. Hearing Jia Wei's words, Yun Jian's lips curled even tighter. She lightly pursed her lips and sneered. The fox hunting organization's #1 thief, Ling Feng, is indeed an expert in direct combat. However, have you forgotten that there is always someone stronger? Just because Ling Feng is an expert doesn't mean that he's the strongest. Yun Jian smirked coldly, her nonchalant expression making everyone's heart race. At that moment, Jia Wei, Eva, Calvin and everyone else were trying to figure out the meaning of Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian stretched out her hands and took out a pair of transparent leather gloves in front of everyone. Then, in front of everyone present, she put the pair of transparent leather gloves on her fair and slender hands. Her movements were slow and leisurely, but there was an indescribable sense of beauty. It was as if Yun Jian, who was slowly fiddling with the gloves, was just a harmless 18-year-old girl. While everyone was captivated by Yun Jian's action of slowly slipping the glove on her fair and slender hand, Yun Jian stared at her slender hand and curled her lips to provoke Ling Feng and Gui Ling in front of everyone. I don't have time to interfere with your grudges. The necklace is in my hands now. You want it? Then let's fight for it. I don't have time to play around with you. If you want the necklace, come at me together. Yun Jian's words, coming from an 18-year-old girl, had an indescribable sense of arrogance. Hearing this, everyone present was stunned. Especially Gui Ling and Ling Feng. When Gui Ling heard Yun Jian's words, because he was wearing a mask, no one could see his expression. At that moment, everyone could tell from Gui Ling's body trembling after hearing Yun Jian's words that Gui Ling was stunned. Stunned for a moment, Gui Ling suddenly chuckled and spoke up after Yun Jian was done. You're right. Since I've decided to get rid of Ling Feng today, do you think I came here alone? After saying this, Gui Ling suddenly clapped his hands. At that moment, 7 figures suddenly flashed in the dark. In the blink of an eye, these 7 figures appeared in front of everyone. At that moment, there were both men and women among the 7 figures. Most of them were wearing masks and looked exactly like Gui Ling. Seeing the 7 people, Ling Feng was stunned. You guys! Don't tell me. After the 7 people appeared, one of the more muscular men laughed coldly at Ling Feng. Ha! Ling Feng, you didn't expect this, did you? It's not just Gui Ling. There are 9 level 1 godly thieves in the fox hunting organization. Other than you, the other 8 level 1 godly thieves in the fox hunting organization all want you dead. That's right, the 7 people who appeared were the 9 level 1 godly thieves in the hunting fox organization, other than Gui Ling and Ling Feng. The 7 of them, including Gui Ling, all wanted Ling Feng dead. After the man who saw the situation spoke, he glanced at Yun Jian from the corner of his eyes and said, at the same time, I'll take care of you, little troublemaker. How dare you be so arrogant in front of us? Don't you want to live in this world? Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2272. This unforeseen event caught everyone off guard. Gui Ling wanting to deal with Ling Feng was already out of everyone's expectations. Now, it had become the case that the other 8 level 1 godly thieves from the hunting fox organization wanted to kill Ling Feng. In other words, the 7 level 1 godly thieves from the hunting fox organization who suddenly appeared had the same idea of killing Ling Feng. Since they all had the same idea, then no matter how powerful Yun Jian was, it would be good if she could match up to Gui Ling. Now Gui Ling had helpers. Gui Ling's helpers weren't ordinary people. They were the famous level 1 godly thieves from the hunting fox organization. There were 7 of them in total. Usually, the appearance of a level 1 godly thief from the hunting fox organization was enough to cause a commotion. But now, the only 9 level 1 godly thieves from the hunting fox organization were all present. And the 8 level 1 godly thieves wanted to kill one of them. Yun Jian actually dared to speak to Gui Ling in such a tone. Even if she didn't die, she would die from her own stupidity. Seeing this, Jay, Eva, Calvin, Ella, and the others all sucked in a deep breath and were stunned for a moment. This time Yun Jian was really done for. Gui Ling wasn't alone. With the arrival of his 7 helpers and Yun Jian saying such outrageous words, she had completely sent herself to a dead end. Hearing the words of the more muscular level 1 godly thief, Ling Feng suddenly shook his head and laughed. After laughing, he seemed to have given up on his own life. He raised his head and met the eyes of the 8 level 1 godly thieves, including Gui Ling, and laughed. I, Ling Feng, have stolen countless rare treasures in my life, but I have never done anything to harm anyone's life. You want to kill me? This is a foregone conclusion. No matter, from the moment I stepped into the world of godly thieves, I didn't plan to leave alive. But they are innocent. Take it as my last plea to you, let them leave. Take the necklace. Ling Feng pointed at Yun Jian, Jia Wei, Calvin and the others as he spoke to the 8 level 1 godly thieves, including Gui Ling. After hearing Ling Feng's words, Gui Ling laughed loudly. Gui Ling already knew that Ling Feng's death was a foregone conclusion. He laughed loudly and refuted Ling Feng's words. Why are you still pretending to be a good person when you're about to die? This little girl dared to talk to me like that, I'm going to humiliate her to death. Only then can I resolve the hatred in my heart. After these words were spoken, the hearts of the surrounding people trembled violently. Jia Wei and the others were so scared that they didn't dare to utter a single word. It had evolved into this situation. This was a confrontation between a group of international bigwigs. None of them dared to utter a single word. Did they not want to live anymore? When Gui Ling saw this scene, he once again let out a strange laughter that sounded like silver bells. After laughing, he looked at Yun Jian and said to Ling Feng, "Since you care so much about her, I'll shoot her in front of you." As he spoke, Gui Ling reached out to take out a pistol from his waist. But just as he reached for the box at his waist, he felt nothing. Gun. Where was his gun? Just as Gui Ling was thinking about this, a girl's voice suddenly sounded. "Is this what you're looking for?" After speaking, Yun Jian suddenly stretched out her hand from behind her back. But what was different from before was that Yun Jian's outstretched hand was holding a large number of weapons. All kinds of guns and knives. When Gui Ling, the 7 level 1 godly thieves, and the other level 7 godly thieves saw these guns and knives, they all turned pale with fright. Aren't those our weapons? Why are they with you? Those weapons, how did they all end up in this little girl's hands? Gui Ling was so scared that his expression suddenly changed. Who exactly was she? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2273. The Fox Hunting Organization was founded not too long ago. When the Fox Hunting Organization was founded as a thieving organization, the head of the Fox Hunting Organization had invited various international bigwigs to a banquet. Yun Jian, also known as Slaying God, was not the top secret agent on the international secret agent chart at that time. The head of the Fox Hunting Organization, Long Shi, had founded a thieving organization because of Yun Jian's reminder. When Slaying God first started her career, she did not accept assassination missions, but various cultural relics instead. When Yun Jian became Slaying God, she did not make a name for herself by going through the usual assassination missions. When she first started her career, she only accepted thieving missions and would occasionally accept assassination missions. Slaying God completed her thieving missions smoothly no matter how many people tried to stop her. She had never failed a thieving mission since she took on thieving missions. Regular thieving masters would more or less make mistakes, but Slaying God, who had just left the Inhun organization, not only became the most powerful thief in the history of thieving masters in the shortest amount of time. Later on, no matter how many people tried to stop her, she could complete her missions smoothly. That was not all. During the period when Slaying God took on thieving missions, she would send a theft notice to the owner of the treasures she had her eyes on before she stole them. In other words, when she stole a treasure, she had to tell the owner of the treasure that she was here to steal it. If he had the ability, he should be prepared. Even so, whenever Slaying God took on a thieving mission, even if the owner knew in advance that she was going to steal the treasure and hired numerous international bigwigs to guard it, there was nothing they could do. What was more terrifying was that not only did Slaying God manage to steal the treasure even when the owner of the treasure knew that she was going to steal it and hired numerous international bigwigs to guard it. Furthermore, they did not even know when Slaying God's men had stolen the treasure. That level of arrogance had caused an international uproar in the shortest amount of time. There were even people who said that Slaying God was not human but a ghost. Only a ghost could do such a thing. That was what the international community was saying. Slaying God was known as the Grandmaster of Thieving Masters back then because she was invincible. After that, Slaying God switched to assassination missions. Her influence on the international scene was so great that it led to the Blood Night incident. After the Bloody Night incident, Slaying God shot to fame and became a global sensation. At that time, the head of the Fox Hunting Organization, Long Shi, listened to Yun Jian and established the Fox Hunting Organization. As for Yun Jian, she was naturally invited by the head of the Fox Hunting Organization, Long Shi, as the Grandmaster of the Great Thief World with the highest VIP seat. At that time, this incident caused a sensation all over the world. Everyone present knew about it. Gui Ling and Ling Feng, who were standing in front of Yun Jian, as well as the 7 godly thieves from the Fox Hunting Organization, had all heard about this matter. Therefore, when they heard Yun Jian's words, everyone revealed shocked expressions. The progenitor of the thief god world. You're the progenitor of the thief god world? Isn't the ancestor of the thief god world? When the fox hunting organization was founded, the founder of the master thief world, Long Shi, had been hired as a VIP by the fox hunting organization's boss, was none other than Slaying God, the top secret agent on the international secret agent ranking. Guiling stared at Yun Jian with his eyes wide open in fear as he spoke in a daze. The progenitor of the thief god world was none other than Slaying God, the top secret agent on the international secret agent ranking back then. This was something that everyone in the circle was familiar with. At that time, after Guiling listened to Yun Jian's words, coupled with the fact that Yun Jian was able to steal the hidden weapons from him and the 7 international level 1 godly thieves from the fox hunting organization without anyone noticing, Guiling's body trembled violently. He was so stunned that he could not utter a word for a long time. When Guiling mentioned the 2 words Slaying God, his voice was so soft that Eva, Jiawei, Calvin, Ella, and the rest could not hear him at all. Therefore, when Jiawei and the rest heard Guiling's words, their eyes froze and they were momentarily stunned. At that moment it was not just Guiling. Even Ling Feng and the other 7 level 1 godly thieves from the fox hunting organization had a change of expression. However, Jiawei could not see the expressions of the masked Guiling and the other 7 level 1 godly thieves from the fox hunting organization. He was already unhappy with Yun Jian, so he refuted her verbally. She can't possibly be the ancestor of the godly thieves world. The ancestor of the godly thieves world was someone from so many years ago. How old was she back then? She even claimed to be the ancestor of the godly thieves world. She must be joking. Is she showing off her acting skills now? Jiawei looked at Yun Jian with contempt and said mercilessly. Just as Jiawei finished his sentence, he suddenly saw Guiling, Ling Feng, and the other 7 level 1 godly thieves looking at a corner. When they saw a mature male figure walking over from that corner, all of them lowered their heads and said in unison to the mature male who had just appeared. Boss. It was the leader of the fox hunting organization, Long Shi. He had appeared. When Long Shi, the leader of the fox hunting organization, appeared in front of everyone's eyes, he first scanned the surroundings with his majestic aura. When he saw Yun Jian, his pupils trembled violently. Right in front of Jiawei, Eva and everyone else, Long Shi strode to Yun Jian and spoke to her in an extremely respectful tone. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. You're here too. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2274. Page 1/1. Long Shi was already 35 years old. To be able to become the leader of the fox hunters at this age, he was already considered young and promising. Long Shi was considered a mature man. Although he was already 35 years old, his appearance was not bad and his skin was well maintained. Just from his appearance alone he gave off a different kind of handsome vibe. The fact that Long Shi had walked up to Yun Jian in front of everyone and said that in public was enough to make one thing clear. Yun Jian was the ancestor of the thieves. This unforeseen event not only frightened Jiawei and the others, even Guiling, Ling Feng, and the others who had already guessed this point had their faces turned pale with fright. It was not surprising that Long Shi could recognize Yun Jian. Before her rebirth, Yun Jian's appearance was always changing in front of outsiders. She always wore a human skin mask on her face. Yun Jian's current body was the same as her body when she was slaying God in her previous life. When she was reborn into this body she was only a little more than 1.6 meters tall. Yun Jian was the same as in her previous life, 1.65 meters tall. Her body was also the same as in her previous life. She was so perfect that no one could find fault with her. Moreover, Long Shi was very familiar with Yun Jian. Just by looking at Yun Jian's intimidating aura, he had already recognized Yun Jian. Seeing this scene, Guiling, Ling Feng, and the other 7 level 1 godly thieves of the fox hunting organization suddenly changed their expressions. Jiawei, who had said that Yun Jian was addicted to showbiz, sucked in a sharp breath from the shock. His rosy cheeks that had just warmed up were now ashen and pale as a sheet. Eva, who was also unhappy with Yun Jian like Jiawei, also took a deep breath. Put away your respectful attitude. I haven't seen you for a few years and I didn't expect you to be so good at acting. Where's that cocky attitude you used to have in front of me? Yun Jian glanced at Long Shi. She crossed her arms in front of her chest, waiting to see how Long Shi was going to act. When everyone heard this they couldn't help but be slightly shocked. From what Yun Jian said, she seemed to be very close to the boss of the fox hunting organization, Long Shi. Don't you seem to enjoy the feeling of being respected and worshipped by others? Tell me which brats in my organization offended you just now. I'll catch them and cook them for dinner later. After Yun Jian said this, Long Shi, who had been looking at Yun Jian with respect and had even lowered his head to speak to Yun Jian with a trembling tone, suddenly seemed to have changed into a different person. He walked up to Yun Jian and spoke in the tone of an old friend. As he spoke, Long Shi glanced left and right at Gui Ling Ling Feng, and the other 7 level 1 godly thieves. He looked as if he had seen his prey. It was as if Yun Jian said who had offended her, Long Shi would really capture them and cook them. The appearance of the fox hunting organization's boss was something that no one had expected. At that time Gui Ling Ling Feng, and the other 7 level 1 godly thieves were like deflated balloons. They all lowered their heads and didn't dare to say a word. It was only then that Long Shi came to Yun Jian's side and spoke to her with a grin. My little S, look at you. It's only been a few years since we last met and you've become even more beautiful. Look at your breast, your butt. Escape. Speaking of which, little S, for years ago I said that I would marry you when you grow up. Are you not going to consider it? Sigh, I'm afraid that no one in this world would want such a cruel woman like you. So, do you want to consider obediently coming into my warm embrace? Although I'm a little older, I know how to dote on women. I didn't marry for so many years because I wanted to wait for you to grow up. Come, little S, give me a hug. Little S was the unique name that Long Shi used to address Yun Jian. 4 years ago, Long Shi had told Yun Jian that he would marry her when she grew up. At that time Yun Jian hadn't been reborn yet. She had never thought about love, so she didn't reject Long Shi nor did she agree to him. What Yun Jian did not know, however, was that Long Shi's eyes shone with sincerity when he said those words that sounded like a joke. At that time, after Long Shi said that last sentence, he really reached out to hug Yun Jian. Even though Yun Jian didn't give him a chance to hug her and avoided him every time, Long Shi didn't give up. He was waiting for her to accept him. However, before Long Shi could reach out to hug Yun Jian, a slender and handsome figure suddenly appeared in front of everyone. In the next second, a slender hand grabbed Long Shi's hand that was about to hug Yun Jian while a long leg kicked Long Shi 10 meters away mercilessly. At the same time, a magnetic and enraged voice boomed out of the blue. What are you talking about? That's my woman. Stay away from my woman. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2275. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation. Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Page 1/1. After Long Shi was yanked away, he was kicked in the abdomen. As he was in front of Yun Jian, Long Shi was defenseless and the kick sent him flying 10 meters away. Fortunately, Long Shi was strong. Although he was kicked to the ground by the sudden kick, he quickly stood up and glanced sideways at the handsome man who suddenly appeared in front of him. The man was in his early 20s, wearing a black casual shirt and a pair of black casual pants. This black casual shirt and black casual pants gave off an indescribable sense of handsomeness when worn by the handsome man. The simple and light clothes outlined the handsome man's slender figure. Looking from afar, the handsome man gave people the feeling that he was a king who was unattainable. That aura that belonged to a king made Long Shi tremble from the depths of his soul. The most shocking thing for Long Shi was not that the handsome man was younger, taller, more handsome and more compatible with Yun Jian. It was, the handsome man was wearing a black casual shirt and black casual pants, and Yun Jian was wearing a black tight shirt and black tight pants. Upon closer inspection, the patterns on the shirt and pants, they were exactly the same. Did this mean that the two of them were wearing matching outfits? Long Shi was so angry that he almost vomited blood when he saw this. When Yun Jian as slaying god had just debuted, most of the missions she took were for thieves. From then on, Yun Jian knew Long Shi, who was an international thief. What attracted Long Shi's attention at first was Yun Jian's unique skills. When Yun Jian debuted as a newbie, she had looked for Long Shi to work with her a few times. Long Shi had always treated Yun Jian as a younger sister. Because of Yun Jian's unique skills, he had worked with Yun Jian many times. Later on, Long Shi gradually realized that Yun Jian's skills were so strong that it was impossible not to admire her. At the age of 14, she had directly killed the previous boss of Kosha mercenaries. At such a young age, she had become the top secret agent in the International Secret Agent chart. Her achievements were much higher than his. It was only then that Long Shi realized that he had fallen in love with this girl who was almost 20 years younger than him. That was why Long Shi told Yun Jian that he would wait for her to grow up so that she could consider marrying him as his wife. For the past 4 years, Long Shi had been waiting for Yun Jian. Not only was he waiting for her to grow up, but he was also waiting for her to consider his proposal. Yun Jian at that time did not reject him, nor did she agree to his proposal. Long she was still hopeful that she would agree to his proposal the next time he saw her. Long she had waited for Yun Jian for the past 4 years. He did not have any contact with any woman. Even the hunting fox organization hunting fox without a second thought. Of Yun Jian translation fox hunting fox. As long she translation as Yun and as long she since long she translation. Unexpectedly, the hunting fox organization hunting fox was successful. At that time, Ce suddenly appeared beside Yun Jian and held onto the hand that Long Shi had never been able to hold. Long Shi clenched his fist. Your woman? Little S has a man. Why didn't I know about it? He had waited bitterly for 4 years. The moment he saw Ce, Long Shi's heart turned cold. He said hatefully. I don't believe it. Long Shi shouted again before Ce could respond. After that, Long Shi's eyes narrowed as he looked at Ce's unbelievably handsome face and spoke to Yun Jian. What's the matter? Little S, don't tell me you deliberately found a man to put on an act just to reject me? Ce frowned when Long Shi said that. In the next second, Ce grabbed the back of Yun Jian's head and bent his handsome face down in front of Long Shi. He grabbed Yun Jian's mouth and their tongues intertwined. It was a moment later that Ce looked up with narrowed eyes, glaring at Long Shi with his gaze as sharp as an eagle's. He then spoke to the latter in a provocative tone. What are you talking about? Apart from having children, we've done everything else as husband and wife. How can it be fake? Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2276. Page 1/1. Ce's provocative words made all the cells in Long Shi's body boil. You actually... Long Shi stood up and glared at Ce with widened eyes as he hissed. The 9 level 1 godly thieves of the fox hunting organization, as well as Jay, Eva, Calvin and Ella, all stared blankly at the scene before them, unable to utter a single word. Just now, when the 9 level 1 godly thieves of the fox hunting organization were killing each other in front of everyone, no one present could get a word in. Not to mention now. Little S, this is fake, isn't it? Long Shi clutched his heart and looked at Yun Jian in pain. He had waited for her for 4 years. What he got in return was this sentence. However, just as Long Shi finished speaking, before Yun Jian could say anything, Ce once again wrapped his arms around Yun Jian's slender waist. He hugged Yun Jian's slender waist from behind and lowered his head to nibble Yun Jian's earlobe in front of Long Shi. She looked just like how Ce behaved in front of Yun Jian. That wasn't all. Ce bit Yun Jian's earlobe and taunted her again in front of Long Shi. He placed his thin lips next to Yun Jian's ear and his handsome face remained expressionless. The expressionless Ce was undoubtedly angry. He was angry that Yun Jian actually talked to Long Shi just now. When we go home this time we'll have a baby. The boy will look like me and the girl will look like Xiao Jian. Ce's rich voice echoed in the hall. Even Eva and Ella, who were not young anymore, blushed when they heard Ce's words. Enough. Little S, I only want your answer. Are you related to him or not? Long Shi interrupted Ce. His fists were hidden in his sleeves as if he was heartbroken. Okay. Yun Jian gave Long Shi a faint reply. After she finished speaking, she held Ce's hand and said to Long Shi decisively, Sorry, I've never had any feelings for you. If you like someone, you like them. If you don't like them, you don't like them. Yun Jian didn't reply to Long Shi because she didn't know what love was. At that time, Yun Jian was only a little over 10 years old. Yun Jian, who had grown up in Anhun, had no idea what love was. At this moment, she could clearly tell Long Shi that she had never had any feelings for him. After Long Shi heard Yun Jian's words, he felt a suffocating pain in his heart. He reached out and covered his head. After thinking for 2 seconds, he suddenly raised his head and said to Yun Jian, Little S, are you going to Death Island? I'll go with you. I won't give up. I've waited for you for 4 years. How many years has it been since this man appeared in your world? I'll use my actions to prove that not only can I wait for you for 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, I'll also wait for you. Long Shi's words made Ce's sharp eyes turn deep. Yun Jian didn't finish her sentence this time. After a moment of silence, no one spoke again. Ce grabbed Yun Jian and left the Paris Museum. Calvin and Ella agreed on a time and place to meet Yun Jian and left first. Long Shi, on the other hand, stood in place and dealt with the matter of the 9 level 1 godly thieves killing each other. After Ce pulled Yun Jian into his Lamborghini sports car, he directly pulled Yun Jian, who was sitting in the passenger seat, into the driver's seat. Then Ce flattened the car seat and grabbed her seductive lips, kissing her deeply. Yunjian hadn't been intimate with Ce for a long time. After being kissed by Ce, she wrapped her arms around Ce's neck and let him do whatever he wanted. Immediately after the passionate kiss, Ce raised his hand and pulled off her black tights and panties. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2277. Yunjian blushed when she felt what Ce was doing, clamping her thighs together before her panties were pulled off. This was the entrance of the Paris Museum. If they were seen. Yunjian flushed. The windows are tinted, people outside can't see us. Be good, Xiaojian, just this once. Before Yunjian could react, Ce bit her earlobe. The earlobe was Yunjian's most sensitive part. Moreover, Yunjian missed Ce dearly. Therefore, after a few rounds she was pushed down and he was satisfied with it. Inside the Paris Museum, where Yunjian and the others were just now, Longshi had yet to leave. When he saw Yunjian being pulled away by Ce, he panicked and wanted to chase after them, but the internal conflict in the organization had not been settled yet. Panicking and having been angered by Ce just now, Longshi turned to his subordinates, Ling Feng, Gui Ling, and the 9 level 1 thieves present, and bellowed. What were you doing just now? Fox hunting was a thief organization. It was not like an assassin or secret agent organization where you could kill the other party anytime you wanted. The thieves in fox hunting had all signed a contract with Longshi. If one of them died, Longshi would be the one to suffer a huge loss. Even if one of the lowest level 6 thieves in fox hunting died, Longshi would suffer a huge loss, let alone a level 1 thief. What was more, a level 1 thief of the highest level. Therefore, fox hunting had its own rules. One of the most important rules was that the thieves in fox hunting were not allowed to kill each other or fight openly or covertly. What had he discovered today though? 8 level 1 thieves in fox hunting had teamed up to go against one of the level 1 thieves and even wanted to kill Ling Feng. Fox hunting's level 1 thieves were afraid of their leader, Longshi, so all of them lowered their heads and kept quiet. At that time, only Longshi and the 9 godly thieves from the fox hunting organization were present. Jay, Eva, Calvin, and Ella had all left. Just as Longshi was flustered and exasperated, Guiling suddenly took the lead and asked Longshi, "Boss, we admit our mistake. We won't do it again in the future. But I want to ask, is that woman really the number 1 secret agent in the world?" Guiling, Ling Feng and everyone else had already guessed this, but they still couldn't believe it. That young girl who looked like she was only 18 years old. Was she really slaying God, the number 1 secret agent in the world? Other than her, who else could have such an aura? I've known slaying God since her debut. How could I have mistaken her for someone else? Longshi interrupted Guiling before he could finish his sentence. These words caused Guiling and the others to take in a deep breath. He gladly accepted this fact. After finally settling the internal conflict in the organization and sending Guiling and the rest to reflect on their mistakes, Longshi walked out of the Paris Museum after ensuring that they wouldn't do anything to Ling Feng in the future. Just as he walked out of the Paris Museum, he saw the window of a Lamborghini sports car rolling down not far away. Through the car window, Longshi happened to see Yunjian buttoning the last button of her blouse after packing her clothes. She pushed Ce with a flushed face. Ce's flawlessly handsome face looked straight at Yunjian with an extremely handsome smile. His starry eyes were fixed on Yunjian. His hand slipped under Yunjian's blouse and grabbed a soft spot at close range. At that moment, Yunjian had already put on her clothes. Longshi could only see a pig-trotter hand under Yunjian's blouse. He didn't need to look to know what the two of them were doing in the car. However, that was not all. Before Longshi could vomit blood from anger, he suddenly saw Ce's handsome lips curling into a sinister smile. In the next second he lowered his head to kiss Yunjian's shoulder and neck in front of Longshi, planting red strawberries one after another. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 2278. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Longshi was close to spitting blood when he saw the scene. What did you guys do here just now? When Longshi saw this, he rushed forward almost instantly. His tightly clenched fists were trembling from anger. All the cells in his body were boiling violently. Ce had already tidied up Yunjian's clothes. His woman could only be his. He would not allow outsiders to look at her. Ce reached out to tuck Yunjian's hair and planted strawberries on Yunjian's shoulders and neck in front of Long Shi. He even stole a kiss on Yunjian's lips before coldly replying to Long Shi. I did what I love to do. The sly words did not sound out of place coming from Ce, who was expressionless. It was enough to infuriate Long Shi. Long Shi was already twitching in rage, his pupils constricted. That was not all. Ce paused before reaching out to tuck Yunjian's hair in front of Long Shi. His starry eyes were fixed on Yunjian as he continued. The kind that doesn't wear panties. After that, Ce touched Yunjian's abdomen and uttered words that were enough to make Long Shi spit blood that could shoot him into the sky. Just now, Xiao Jian's stomach might already be carrying my child. Long Shi's face was as dark as charcoal when he heard that. Long Shi clenched his fists so tightly that they overlapped and trembled violently. It was so strong that it felt like he was going to punch Ce in the next second. In spite of it, Long Shi held himself back. Long Shi was a very far-sighted person. Even if he liked a girl and the girl he liked was in the arms of another man, Long Shi would not easily make a move. When necessary, he would even resist telling the other party that he liked the other party. Ce and Long Shi were the exact opposite. Like. If anyone dared to touch his woman, he would turn them into trash. Yunjian did not say anything after hearing Ce's words. Instead, she snuggled into Ce's arms. Other than blushing a little when she heard Ce's words, Yunjian did not think anything was wrong. What was more, after Ce's words, warmth flowed through Yunjian's heart. Mrs., even if that's the case, I won't let you. I don't care if you're with a man or not. As long as you're willing, my arms, I don't believe that this man loves you more than I do. I will prove it with my actions. Words. Long Shi could no longer bear to see Ce and Yunjian in each other's arms. He turned to leave after telling Yunjian this solemnly. Long Shi had never told Yunjian that he loved her. Even when he told Yunjian that he would marry her when she grew up, it was only a joke. Yunjian did not expect Long Shi to be so persistent. Back then, Yunjian merely blinked when she saw it. Yunjian had always been an idiot when it came to relationships. Therefore, she did not feel much when she heard Long Shi's words. Her heart was small and only belonged to Ce now. In the middle of the night, Ce brought Yunjian to a snack bar that was open all night for a meal. Slaying God would always find a snack bar to have a meal after a mission to relieve her stress. After receiving the sky blue necklace today, Ce had a thorough understanding of Yunjian's fetishes. Ce did not only love her as a person or her body. He loved every bit of her, including her likes and dislikes, from everything she liked to eat to the little fetishes. It was a crayfish restaurant. Yunjian loved eating crayfish, especially after a mission. In spite of it, Yunjian rarely ate lobsters at the crayfish restaurant after completing her mission because lobsters were difficult to peel. Ce brought Yunjian to the crayfish restaurant tonight and ordered 3 big pots of crayfish. He did not eat a single bite and peeled the crayfish for Yunjian. Ce used to hate peeling such greasy things. Especially crayfish, which were not only greasy but also prickly. Today he peeled 3 big pots of crayfish for her. Yunjian did not stop Ce from peeling the crayfish for her. She held her chopsticks and tilted her head slightly to look at his handsome and well-defined face. She felt warm inside. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2279. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. If one were to ask what was the happiest thing that had happened to Yunjian, it would probably be meeting Ce. She had never thought that she would meet her other half in her lifetime. And the person she met just happened to be the person that all the girls had fantasized about in their hearts. Ce brought Yunjian to a nearby hotel and brought Yunjian back to Country S the next day. Xiao Jian, something happened in Deity Continent. I have to go back. If I can't make it back in time, go to Death Island first. I have a way to catch up to you. After sending Yunjian safely to Country S, Ce told Yunjian. News had suddenly come from Deity Continent that something major had happened. As the ruler of Deity Continent, Ce had to make a trip back. Of course, Death Island was the way to the mysterious man's residence. Ce would never let Yunjian take the risk alone. Since he had asked Yunjian to go to Death Island first, he must have a way to catch up to her. Okay. Yunjian nodded. After 2 seconds of contemplation, Yunjian asked again, is there anything major on your side? Deity Continent had an emergency that required Ce's return. Yunjian did not know what it was, but she asked Ce anyway. She asked because she was worried that something life-threatening would happen to him when he returned to Deity Continent. If a person cared about another person, whether it was friendship, family, or love, as long as something happened to the other person, they would be worried half to death. Yun Jian asked after hearing Ce say that something had happened in Deity Continent because she was instinctively concerned about Ce's safety. She did not want anything to happen to him. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Ce smiled and reached out his large hand to press Yun Jian's head, caressing it gently. His eyes, which were usually as sharp as a sword and could kill people, instantly became gentle when he looked at her. Xiao Jian, don't worry. I'm fine. Ce then patted Yun Jian's head. Ce then bent down to steal a kiss from Yun Jian's soft lips, a satisfied smile spreading across his handsome face. Don't let the fox hunting organization's leader get close to you. I'll be jealous. Ce was straightforward. With that, Ce bent down again and kissed the lips that he had been yearning for day and night at the spot where passers-by would pass by occasionally. Okay, Yun Jian, who was kissed so many times by Ce, nodded at Ce in agreement, her cheeks blushing slightly. Although he would often do some embarrassing things to her now, such as leaning down and kissing her casually, she was not afraid to say it out loud. She just liked it and enjoyed it very much. After Ce left, Yun Jian came to a snack bar near a pier by the sea in Country S. This was the place where she had agreed to meet Calvin and the others. Just as Yun Jian arrived, she saw Calvin and the others waving at her from afar. She put her hands in her trouser pockets and walked toward Calvin and the others. We've got the yacht. It belongs to my friend. He said he's lending it to us for 2 days. The yacht is modified from an old warship. Not only is it fast, even tanks and bombs won't be able to destroy it. We're going to the pier now, we can depart right away. Calvin spoke to Yun Jian in fluent English. Yun Jian nodded. Just as the group of people was about to walk towards the dock, an aged male voice stopped everyone's footsteps. Wait, I'm going too. Hearing the familiar voice, Yun Jian turned with squinted eyes and saw Mr. Horace, who had been staying in the mental hospital for more than 20 years, the only person who had survived Death Island and had been pretending to be insane for more than 20 years, walking toward them with a crutch. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2280. Page 1/1. Horace's appearance was out of everyone's expectations. To Horace, Death Island had become his worst nightmare. His pirate friends had all died on Death Island, and it was a man-made death at that. Therefore, on Death Island, there must be something or someone that could make Horace shudder at the mere sight of it. But Horace actually appeared here, and even proposed to travel with Yun Jian's group. This was something that Yun Jian and the others did not expect. Although Yun Jian was surprised, she did not show her inner feelings on her face. At this moment, Ella saw Horace walking towards them with a walking stick. She was stunned for a moment, but after recovering from her shock, Ella quickly went over to support Horace, who was not tall, only 1.6 meters tall and had a very skinny body. Grandpa Horace, why are you here? Ella asked after supporting Horace. Yes, Yun Jian has already promised to avenge you. Do you still want to go? Calvin asked after hearing Horace's words. From Yun Jian's performance in the Paris Museum, the fox hunting organization's leader seemed to be very familiar with her. Also, she was actually the founder of the Thief World. Although Calvin, Ella and the others did not know Yun Jian's exact identity, they could already guess that Yun Jian's identity was definitely not ordinary. Yes, I want to go personally. Actually, when I left Death Island, it was not only because I was afraid that someone would set foot on Death Island again, it was also because I was afraid. For the past 20 years, I have been living in the condemnation of my conscience. Because of my fear, I was afraid that I would set foot on Death Island again. Therefore, I would rather play the fool. I was afraid. I was terrified. I did not dare to go to Death Island, let alone avenge my dead brothers. But today I have thought it through. I want to go to Death Island myself, I want to avenge them. I can't endure this kind of life anymore. I'd rather throw away my remaining life on Death Island than continue living in this world. Horace had made up his mind. When the others heard this, they could see Horace's inner struggle. Yes, when Horace was young, he had escaped from Death Island after experiencing the hellish terror of Death Island. The reason he played the fool was not only to prevent international people from going to Death Island again. The main reason was that he was afraid that others would force him to lead them to Death Island. Even though his brothers had died on Death Island, he still did not dare to go there again. He did not even have the courage to avenge his brothers. For the past 20 years, Horace had been living with the guilt of not being able to avenge his brothers. He was the only one who had managed to leave Death Island alive, but he had left the corpses of his brothers behind in that terrifying place. It had been 20 years. Horace had finally thought it through. He wanted revenge. To avenge his dead brothers. Even if I die in that place, I don't want to suffer the pain and despair of my conscience. Everyone was of Death Island was Death Island. After all, Horace had been to the Death Island before and was unfamiliar with the place. The group says, "It's over there." Calvin led the group to his yacht. When they arrived at his yacht, Yunjian saw Jay, Eva, and the others who had snuck away from the Paris Museum. There were no less than 500 people gathered at the dock, each of them carrying all kinds of weapons blocking Calvin's yacht. "They're here. They're here. They have the necklace that is crucial for going to Death Island. Stop them, don't let them leave." When Jiawei saw Yunjian, he was slightly afraid, but he still stood on the high ground and pointed at Yunjian to the almost 500 people behind him as he spoke loudly. After saying this, Jiawei shrank back in fear and retreated to the back of the 500 people. These 500 people were obviously seeking thrills, international people who had been looking for Death Island for many years. Some of them were even willing to hurt others to achieve their goals. Jay was afraid of Yunjian, so he gathered these people to block Yunjian's. He planned to force Yunjian to bring all of them along. Otherwise, no one would be able to go to Death Island. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2281. After saying that, Jiawei slipped behind the 500 people. At this time, the leader of the 500 people was a rough-looking man with a long black beard that covered almost half of his face. He was tall and muscular as if he had been training his muscles for years. After hearing Jiawei's words, he looked at Yunjian with a ferocious expression. "Are you planning to go to Death Island by yourselves? Listen, little girl, bring us along. Otherwise, don't even think about passing through here today." The muscular man glared at Yunjian with a ferocious expression. He stood in front of Yunjian. His big and fierce muscles could be seen clearly even through his shirt. If an ordinary girl heard the muscular man's words, they would probably be scared to tears. However, Yunjian only frowned slightly. Countless adventurers who loved adventure and sought excitement flocked to this place after hearing the rumors about Death Island. The reason was because they suddenly received a message from Jiawei saying that they needed to obtain a sky blue necklace to go to Death Island. And that necklace just happened to be in Yunjian's hands. One must know that when they first heard about Death Island, countless adventurers risked their lives to go to Death Island, but to no avail. Humans were despicable. The more they couldn't get something, the more they wanted to get it. The more mysterious Death Island was, the more people wanted to go there. But no matter how many methods they used, they couldn't go to Death Island. There was once someone who wanted to test whether Horace, the only person who went to Death Island, was pretending to be crazy. They even put a real snake on Horace's bed to scare him. The things that this group of crazy adventurers did were things that outsiders would never expect. They even used unscrupulous methods to achieve their goals. Today, Jiawei called over these 500 crazy adventurers to force Yunjian to hand over the necklace. If she didn't hand it over, then no one would be able to go to Death Island. One must know that there was strength in numbers. Unless Yunjian really had the ability to suppress everyone with her own strength. However, the group of adventurers in front of her, a group of 500 people, were all trained. If they didn't have the ability to go on an adventure, how could they succeed? Jiawei really couldn't do it. Yunjian was only an 18-year-old girl. Did she really have the ability to suppress 500 people with her own strength? Thus, after Jiawei raised the matter, he was afraid that he would be implicated and hid behind these 500 people. At that time, the muscular man's words made everyone's heart beat fiercely and their hearts slightly trembled. Yunjian didn't say anything, her sharp eyes, a trace of killing intent. The muscular man did not catch the murderous glint that flashed in Yunjian's eyes. Thinking that she was just an 18-year-old girl, he did not pay much attention to her. Instead, he turned to look at Horace and said angrily, "Horace, Horace of Horned Horace." The muscular man was the one who had put a real, non-poisonous snake on Horace's bed to scare him in order to find out whether Horace was pretending to be crazy or not. Horace was most afraid of snakes. He was really scared, but he forced himself to endure it. "Ha, Horace of Horned Horace. Just you wait. When I get to Death Island, I'll kill you first." The muscular man wasn't joking when he said this to Horace. After saying this, the muscular man turned to glare fiercely at Yunjian and threatened, "Damn girl, hand over that necklace." Otherwise, I'll let the few hundred men here gang rape you to death. The muscular man was someone who would really do such a thing. When the surrounding people heard the muscular man's words, they all let out wretched laughter. Yun Jian was beautiful. As long as a man saw her, he wouldn't be able to hold himself back. As the muscular man said this, he even stretched out his hand to Yun Jian, asking for the necklace. Jia Wei, Eva, and the rest who were hiding in the dark saw this and smiled fiercely. Let's see what Yun Jian can do now. How could she suppress everyone by herself? Even an international figure wouldn't be able to do this. However, just as Jia Wei and the rest were thinking this and smiling, Yun Jian, who had been lowering her head, suddenly raised her head. In front of everyone, a butterfly knife suddenly appeared in her hand. That knife was thrown out by her from over 10 meters away and directly pierced the muscular man's heart in front of everyone. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. Chapter 2282. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. At that moment, everyone seemed to have seen the Grim Reaper from the Sea of Hellfire. Stepping on the muscular man's corpse with one foot, Yun Jian held the butterfly knife that was still dripping with blood. The crimson blood dripped from the tip of the blade and seeped into the cement floor. From the moment Yun Jian pulled the butterfly knife out of the muscular man's heart, the muscular man died on the spot. Yun Jian's expression did not change in the slightest. Her nonchalant demeanor made it seem like the person she had just killed was not a living person but a lowly ant that was trampled under her foot. She actually dared to kill someone? Hiding behind a group of people, Jia Wei's pupils constricted as he watched Yun Jian, who killed the muscular man with a single slash in front of the 500 adventurers and their family members, in shock and fear. Jay, Eva and the rest who saw this scene were so frightened that their faces turned purple, especially Jay. These 500 adventurers were all called over by Jay after he leaked the news. Hence, Jay was so frightened that his face turned green. He stared at the scene in front of him in horror and wanted to hide behind the crowd to cover his tracks. At this moment, not only Jay but the 500 adventurers also took a few steps back out of fear when they saw Yun Jian's actions. It was because Yun Jian's actions were too frightening. That aura was so strong that no one was not afraid of it. Even Calvin, Ella, and Horace, who were with Yun Jian, were frightened. Yun Jian's eyes narrowed when she saw the shock on the faces of the people around her. As if she had not done anything horrifying, she took out a piece of white paper from her pocket and wiped the blood off the butterfly knife before stabbing it back into the wound on her thigh. After finishing this series of actions, Yun Jian turned around and looked at Calvin and the rest. That look meant that Calvin and the rest were to board the yacht first. Calvin was 32 years old this year. Although he was not considered experienced, he was still someone who had experienced many things. Naturally, he could understand the meaning behind Yun Jian's look. Seeing this, Calvin hurriedly gestured to his team members, including Mr. Horace. The few of them quickly walked through the corridor that was blocked by the 500 people and continued to walk to the yacht. They then started the engine and prepared to set sail. Yun Jian was the last to board the yacht. After she killed the muscular man, she sent a message to the kosher mercenaries in front of everyone and wrote down an address. The kosher mercenaries had people who specialized in cleaning corpses. After Yun Jian sent the address to the kosher mercenaries, they immediately sent someone to clean up the place. At the same time, Yun Jian stepped on the flat ground and easily leaped onto the yacht. Because of Yun Jian's presence, the group of adventurers were unwilling to let Yun Jian and the rest leave. Although they were martial artists, they were not international figures who relied on their strength to make a living. Therefore, until the yacht left, the group of adventurers did not make any moves. The group of people who drove the yacht out of the sea heaved a sigh of relief. Calvin was driving the yacht. Thinking about the scene that happened just now, he could not help but sweat. Only when the yacht was a few hundred meters away from the shore did the group finally relax. Yun Jian, thank you so much just now. Calvin let out a long sigh. Hearing this, Yun Jian only nodded. Only when the yacht was a few thousand meters away from the shore did the group turn on the radio installed in the yacht in order to relieve their tension. At this moment, as soon as the radio was turned on, a beautiful female voice rang out. This beautiful female voice said the news of the day that made everyone's heart tremble. Today there have been cases of missing persons in Country S. The police are still investigating. If there is any specific information, we will broadcast the latest news as soon as possible. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2283. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1, S country? Wasn't the coast they were sailing on within S country's borders? As they boarded the yacht to Death Island, they turned on the radio and heard the shocking news broadcast. Everyone was shocked. What kind of news broadcast is this? How could they report such a strange incident? Do they know that we are going to explore Death Island? One of Calvin and Ella's companions shuddered when he heard the news. He walked over and turned off the radio before sitting down. The man who spoke was 21 years old, 11 years younger than Calvin. His name was Fei Lei. Fei Lei was young and wasn't as steady as Calvin. He wasn't like Horace, who had lived for almost his entire life. Under such an atmosphere and hearing such a news broadcast, young people love to overthink. Therefore at this moment Fei Lei shuddered deeply. Fei Lei was considered handsome in the eyes of foreigners. He had thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a high-nose bridge. He had the face of a typical young foreign male. However, under such an atmosphere, Fei Lei's words seemed to lack masculinity. Horace, on the other hand, was stunned when he heard the news. However, he quickly regained his composure and tried his best to suppress the fear in his heart before anyone else noticed his horror. It was as if he was recalling something that made his hair stand on end. No one noticed Horace's action. Yun Jian, who was sitting on the deck of the yacht, had one leg on the ground and the other leg raised. She was sitting lazily on the railing of the yacht. She narrowed her eyes and saw Horace's expression change. He immediately suppressed the fear in his eyes. However, Yun Jian didn't say anything. The yacht has been changed to an automatic mode. We have stored enough rations to last us for a month. Now we should plan our route to Death Island. Calvin, who had been sitting in the control room all this while, walked out at this moment and came to the front of everyone. Mr. Horace, I'll have to trouble you to recall the situation on Death Island. Then we can make a plan. Calvin was very clear. He stood in front of Horace and spoke to him in a very sincere tone. Horace was silent for 2 seconds. 2 seconds later, Horace placed his hand on his forehead and frowned. The next second, Horace pinched his forehead with one hand and shook his head slightly. Only then did he raise his head and say to everyone, "What's the matter? The Island of Death is just like its name. Anyone who enters the island will definitely die. Back then we weren't the only ones who mistakenly entered the Death Island. I was the only one who left the Death Island alive. The Island of Death was just like its name. Anyone who entered the island would die without a doubt. Finding this sky blue necklace was not the only way to get to Death Island. However, with this sky blue necklace, no matter which direction you go, this sky blue necklace will lead you to Death Island. If someone who didn't want to go to Death Island got this sky blue necklace, it would be the same as being sent to the road of death. Just like the old pirate Horace and his friends 20 years ago, they accidentally entered Death Island. So what exactly is in that Death Island? Why did your friends die there? Calvin asked the main point. When this was mentioned, Horace paused for a moment. Then, in front of everyone, he spoke with a terrified expression. There is a huge man-eating monster on Death Island. That monster is 10 times bigger than a tiger or lion. Whenever the people who live on Death Island catch someone alive, they will feed that person to the monster in front of everyone. Then, the monster will swallow that person alive. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2284. Page 1/1. In short, the people who lived on Death Island were also humans from Earth. However, they were bloodthirsty and murderous. They never treated living outsiders as humans. Whenever they caught a living person, they would tie them up and bring them directly to the big monster, which was far larger than any ordinary creature on Earth. They would let the big monster swallow the living person alive. Some people were even grabbed by the giant monster and had their heads bitten off in one bite, their bodies, hands, and feet bitten off in the other. The miserable state of his death was something that no one could accept. Hearing Horace's words, everyone present felt their scalps go numb, and their hearts trembled. Then your friends are. Even Calvin, who had always been calm and collected, couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat when he heard Horace's words. That's right. When we first arrived at Death Island, we were caught by the group of humans who lived there. It was only later that we found out that they were feeding the monster with live humans. My friends were all bitten to death by that big monster on the spot. That big monster ate my friends and spat out their bones in front of everyone. Horace interrupted Calvin. At this moment, Horace's fists were clenched tightly, and he was so scared that he couldn't move. His mind was replaying the scene that made him tremble with fear. This world, there's actually such a monster. What kind of god is it? When the younger Felix heard Horace's words, his body trembled violently and his face turned pale. Horace was silent for a long time. It was as if he was trying to adjust his state of mind. After a while, Horace finally adjusted his state of mind. He heaved a sigh of relief and then gently wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead and said to Felix, "I don't know what kind of god that monster is, but when I first saw it, I was really scared out of my wits. That monster was 10 meters tall, and as tall as a 3-story building. Its body was extremely sturdy, and it was bound by the group of people on Death Island. After I left Death Island, I went through all the information about the species on Earth, but all the species on Earth were completely different from that big monster. It was just like the hell in the legends. Everything on the island has transcended nature and the world." Horace's words reverberated throughout the hall, causing everyone to tense up once again. "I'm a little scared." Ella tugged at the leather jacket on her upper body and shrunk back in fear. "Don't panic. Before we came here, I asked someone to get us some weapons, guns, ammunition and the like. Everyone should carry some with them before we set foot on the island. Even if something really happens, we can still protect ourselves," Calvin said as he patted Ella's back. Hearing that Calvin was armed, Ella heaved a huge sigh of relief. "The big monster you mentioned, is it that it has a head like a bull's horn, a body like a tiger's and hooves like a horse's, but is more than 10 times larger than all the creatures on Earth?" Just when everyone was in a state of panic, Yun Jian, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said this. After she finished speaking, everyone turned to look at Horace. Horace's eyes widened abruptly when he heard what Yun Jian said. He looked at Yun Jian in shock and exclaimed in front of Calvin, Ella and everyone else's horrified gazes, "I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. How did you know?" Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2285. After hearing Horace's words, everyone stared at Yun Jian in shock. They wanted to get an answer from Yun Jian. How did Yun Jian know what the monster on Death Island looked like? She had never been to Death Island. How did she know what the monster on Death Island looked like? Horace himself was staring at Yun Jian in shock and fear. It was as if he wanted to stare a hole into Yun Jian's body. How did she know what that monster looked like? Under everyone's gaze, Yun Jian's lips curled up. She smiled coldly and said, "I guessed." "You guessed it so accurately?" Fei Lei glared at him and took the lead to speak. After Fei Lei said that, Yun Jian didn't say anything else. Everyone could only let it go. Seeing Yun Jian like that, she definitely wouldn't want to say anything else. At that moment, Yun Jian was still sitting on the deck of the yacht. She placed one hand lazily on her lap and narrowed her eyes. Her thoughts drifted far away. According to Horace's words, Yun Jian could roughly guess the identity of the monster. The monster must be a demonic beast from the myriad continents. As for why it was on Death Island and why the group of people fed it with living humans, it was still a mystery to Yun Jian. After sailing for about 5 hours, the surroundings didn't change. After the sun set, everyone slept in a few rooms on the yacht at night. One person stayed up to keep watch. Until 4 o'clock in the morning of the second day, Yun Jian was woken up by an excited voice. Quick look. After hearing the voice, Yun Jian rolled over and got out of bed. As soon as she walked out of the room on the yacht, she saw a thick fog pervading the surroundings. It was like a fairyland and was very beautiful. Legend had it that Death Island would only appear on the surface of the Indian Ocean at dawn. Thick fog pervaded the surroundings. It was so beautiful that it attracted passing ships to dock at the shore of Death Island. However, the more beautiful something was, the more dangerous it was. That faintly discernible island is the Death Island. Everyone get ready, Horace said in a trembling voice. Horace paused for a moment before continuing. As soon as we enter the Death Island, the humans on the Death Island will appear and capture us. We must remain vigilant at all times. Horace's words made everyone on the yacht turn around and grab all kinds of weapons. They held them in their hands and maintained their vigilance. Until the ship docked at the shore, everyone then carefully disembarked from the ship, trying not to disturb the group of humans who would feed living humans to huge monsters. Horace, Calvin, and the others were extremely cautious, as if they were afraid of disturbing the monsters on Death Island. However, just as Horace, Calvin, and the others were being extremely cautious, Yun Jian jumped off the boat and walked towards Death Island in an extremely lazy manner. She didn't seem to be afraid at all. What was more surprising was that Yun Jian purposely made heavy footsteps with every step she took. It was as if she was afraid of being discovered by the terrifying group of humans on Death Island. Yunjian, be careful. We will be discovered. Even Calvin couldn't help but sweat when he saw that. His expression froze. Who knew that Yunjian, who was standing in front, narrowed her eyes and a strange light flashed across her eyes. She said indifferently, "It's too late. We have already been targeted. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile reading website. Chapter 2286. Page 1/1. Horace was the first to be taken aback by Yunjian's words. Calvin, Ella, and Fei Lei were next. After being stunned for a moment, everyone's slightly trembling faces instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper. We were discovered so quickly? Fei Lei was shocked. His eyes were wide open and his mouth was so wide that his chin could touch his shoulders. He shouted in horror. Although the people around him were afraid, they didn't show it on their faces like Fei Lei, who was trembling with fear. Yunjian, who stood in front, narrowed her eyes. "Put down your weapons and let them catch you." When Horace, Calvin and the others clenched their weapons tightly and saw the group of humans walking towards them from all directions of Death Island, they were so scared that their scalps turned numb and their palms started to ooze cold sweat. Yunjian's calm and short voice sounded. Only Horace, Calvin, and the rest could hear it. Hearing this, Fei Lei, who was standing behind Calvin, narrowed his eyes and whispered to Yunjian, "You're crazy." That group of people. After the group of people captured them, they would do what they did to Horace's friends. They would bring them to the monster and then let the monster eat them on the spot. But Yunjian actually asked them to put down their weapons. Were they tired of living? However, before Fei Lei could finish his words, Calvin's deep male voice sounded, "Listen to her." Calvin was the leader of the group and even Fei Lei had to listen to him. Therefore, after hearing Calvin's words, Fei Lei put down his gun despite his fear. At that moment, the group of people from Death Island was already standing in front of Yunjian's group. This group of people was no different from the humans on Earth, and they weren't the barbarians on Death Island. They also spoke English, which was commonly used on Earth. Yunjian and the others did not resist. The group of people tied up Yunjian and the others and brought them to the place where the monster was tied up. This was an open field beside a hillside. After Yunjian and the rest were brought here, they saw a huge monster entrenched in the ground not far away. Perhaps it could be said that this was a gigantic magical beast. That fiend beast was 3 stories tall, with a head like a bull's horn, a body like a tiger and feet like a horse's hooves. It was dozens of times larger than the creatures on Earth. Without a doubt, it was a magical beast from the myriad continents. At the same time, the gigantic magical beast's limbs were bound by thick and large chains, restricting its range of movement. What made Yunjian puzzled was, why would this magical beast from the myriad continents be controlled by this group of humans? Just as Yunjian narrowed her eyes at the scene before her, the leader of the group of people who had tied up Yunjian and the others suddenly pointed at Yunjian and Ayla and ordered his subordinates, "Make more breakfast for Fiend Beast. Give Lord Magic Beast some more breakfast, just those 2 girls." The leader of this group of people who lived on Death Island was called Berkey. Below Bogey's cheeks was a very thick beard that almost covered his entire face, making it impossible for outsiders to see Bogey's appearance. Only a pair of deep, dark eyes could be seen. Even Berkey's age was unknown to everyone present. At this moment Ayla, who was called out, instantly turned pale with fright. "What? Me?" Ayla glanced at the magical beast in the distance. In the distance, the demonic beast was using its claws to grab a person who was struggling in fear. Just like that, the demonic beast sent the person into its huge mouth and swallowed the person who was crying and begging for mercy. The person was so scared that blood was flowing out of his body. Not long after, the magical beast's mouth began to bleed. After chewing for a minute, the magical beast swallowed a pile of bones in front of everyone. A living person was gone just like that. Ayla almost fainted at the sight of this scene. Calvin, Felix, and the others were so frightened that their faces turned pale and their lips trembled. The calmness that they had previously retained was now completely out of control. No wonder after leaving Death Island, Horace would rather pretend to be dead than return to Death Island. Every time the matter of Death Island was mentioned, it was as if he had recalled something terrifying. Because back then, Horace watched helplessly as his friend was sent into the mouth of that gigantic magical beast. That feeling of helplessness was simply unimaginable to outsiders. No. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Ayla was so frightened that she struggled to escape. "I want to go home. I don't want to stay in this damned place. I want to go home." But it was useless no matter how much she cried. Soon, someone came over to suppress Yun Jian and Ayla and walked towards the magical beast. Only after pushing Yun Jian and Ayla towards the magical beast did Berkey's subordinates quickly retreat. At this moment, the magical beast had already habitually scooped up Yun Jian and Ayla with both hands and was about to send them into its huge mouth. Translator. Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. Chapter 2287. Page 1/1. No. Oh. That Yun Jian told us to put down our weapons. Shouldn't she have a way? Is she trying to kill us on purpose? We didn't mistreat her along the way. How could she do this? Oh. No. Looking at the fiend scooping up Yun Jian and Ayla and feeding them to its mouth, Fei Lei's eyes widened at the thought of the innocent person being devoured just like that. He let out a final cry of despair. Even Calvin, who had always been calm, seemed to have lost his composure at this moment. He was stunned by the sudden turn of events and couldn't return to his senses for a long time. At this moment, Calvin, Felix and the rest finally understood Horace's heart that was on the verge of collapse. Seeing their little companions being sent into the mouth of a huge magical beast, and in the next moment becoming a pile of bones like that innocent person, everyone was really panicking. The leader of this group of people who specialized in capturing people to feed the magical beast, Boji, was used to such scenes. He stood in place, listening to his subordinates beside him exclaim in surprise. "Boss, once the Lord Magical Beast eats these two women, it will have eaten 10,000 people. Once the Lord Magical Beast has eaten 10,000 people, it will listen to your orders. At that time, let the Lord Magical Beast open the passage to the myriad continents. You can borrow the Lord Magical Beast's hand to become the ruler of the myriad continents." That's right, Boji and his subordinates were stationed at Death Island to capture people alive and offer them to the magical beast to eat. And Boji and the rest were just ordinary humans. 25 years ago, Boji and the rest were just a group of pirates drifting in the Indian Ocean. Then one day they accidentally entered Death Island, and from there they accidentally entered another world. That world was one of the myriad continents. Later on, Boji and the rest were forced to leave the myriad continents, but everything in the myriad continents fascinated them. The lifespan of an immortal cultivator could actually live for thousands of years. Tens of thousands of years. At a certain level they could even live forever. In addition, everything in the myriad continents attracted him. Therefore, Baki was fascinated and wanted to take over the myriad continents. But in the end, Boji and the others were chased out of the myriad continents. However, before leaving the myriad continents, a black-robed man appeared. That person gave Bogi a small magic beast and said that he wanted Bogi to feed it with living people. When he fed 10,000 people, the magic beast would listen to him. Even if he wanted thousands of continents, this magical beast would be able to obtain them for him. Boji was tempted. After returning to Death Island, he immediately took action. That was what led to everything that happened later. And this little magical beast grew bigger and bigger, turning into its current terrifying appearance. Now, as he watched the magical beast devour 10,000 people, with only 2 people left to complete the task, all the cells in Bogi's body were trembling violently and boiling. On the other side, Yun Jian and Ayla were caught in the fiend's hand and sent to its mouth. Then in front of everyone the magical beast sent Yun Jian and Ella into its mouth. No! Calvin, Felix and the others let out a final cry of despair. At this moment, Yun Jian and Ella had already been swallowed by the magical beast. Everything was over. Baki laughed wildly. He seemed to have seen himself becoming the ruler of the myriad continents. As he laughed, Baki suddenly stopped laughing. His smile instantly froze. What did he see? That magical beast had just swallowed Yun Jian and Ella, and had not even chewed. With a chi sound, the huge magical beast, starting from the top, seemed to have been sliced open by a huge sharp sword. Its body instantly split into 2 halves. This huge magical beast was instantly killed. And at that moment, the magical beast's head split open, a girl in a black shirt and black pants used her mind power to grab another girl who had fainted from fright. Just like that, from where the magical beast's mouth had been, she gently landed on the ground in front of everyone from a height of more than 10 meters. The huge magical beast's body split into 2 halves and fell behind her just like that. At this moment, everyone present felt as if they had seen the god of slaughter from hell. But they saw that the girl with a cold expression was now smiling coldly. She suddenly spoke to Bogi and the others in front of everyone, but what she said shocked them so much that they forgot to breathe. A mere lowly magical beast, how dare you be so arrogant in front of me? Go to hell. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2288. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, page 1/1. At this moment, Ella was being held by Yun Jian's spiritual power. Therefore, when she fell from a height of more than 10 meters, she did not fall straight down. Instead, she was gently sent to the ground. But at this moment, Ella had already fainted from the shock of the scene just now. She thought that she was already dead. After all, in the scene just now, Ella and Yun Jian were directly sent into the demonic beast's mouth. As long as the demonic beast chewed, it could bite off Yun Jian and Ella, just like how it swallowed the innocent person just now. It swallowed Yun Jian and Ella into its stomach. If a normal person could survive this, it was simply unrealistic. Therefore, when the demonic beast swallowed Yun Jian and Ella, everyone present thought that Yun Jian and Ella were already dead. Calvin, Felix, and the others were so desperate that their faces turned pale. The moment Yun Jian and Ella were swallowed, Calvin, Felix, and the others had already closed their eyes, not daring to watch the scene in front of them. But what they did not expect was that, the moment Yun Jian and Ella were swallowed by the demonic beast, starting from the top of the demonic beast's head, the demonic beast's entire body was instantly torn into two halves as if it was pierced through by a huge sharp sword. Yun Jian and Ella also successfully escaped from danger. However, the most shocking thing was not this. But, when Yun Jian landed, she actually used her spiritual power to grab the unconscious Ella in the air. This means that the demonic beast's death was also caused by Yun Jian? Who exactly is this Yun Jian? She actually has the ability to tear the demonic beast's body into two halves after being swallowed. Calvin, Felix, and the others who saw this scene widened their eyes in horror. Horace, who thought that Yun Jian and Ella were doomed, also looked at the scene in front of him in horror, unable to recover for a long time. Boki, who felt that he was about to succeed and that he was about to make that huge magical beast listen to his orders and lead him to the myriad continents, widened his eyes fiercely when he saw this scene. In that second, Bogi's expression changed drastically. He looked at the scene in front of him in horror. His face instantly paled as if he had seen something that was shocking and impossible. Could it be that you are from the myriad continent? But that was impossible. This was impossible. This was impossible. That person said that even if it's the people of the myriad continent, there's absolutely no one who can kill this magical beast. Who are you? Bogi's face suddenly paled as if he had seen something unbelievable. He stared at Yun Jian in shock and fear, all the cells in his body trembling and boiling. That person was naturally the black-robed man who had raised Bogi's little magical beast. This is impossible. Could it be that you're from God's continent? But if the people of the God's continent want to leave, it's not that easy. There are no more than 10 deities in this world who can open a passage to leave the God's continent. Among the myriad continents, other than the legendary sorcerer god, who fell 1,000 years ago, no one else has the ability to kill my magical beast. But who are you? Bogi's face was distorted. He stared fiercely at Yun Jian as if he wanted to stare a hole into Yun Jian's body. Horace, Calvin, Felix, and the others were confused. They had no idea what Bogi was talking about. But Horace and the others could tell that the sorcerer god of the myriad continents that Bogi was talking about was definitely an important figure who could shake the other world he was talking about. However, right after Bogi finished speaking, Yun Jian stood in front of Bogi again in front of everyone present. Then, with a cold, emotionless voice, she spoke in front of Horace, Calvin, and the others as well as Bogi and the group of subordinates behind Bogi, with a red arc and a cold, bone-chilling smile on her face. I'm sorry, but I'm the sorcerer god, the daughter of the sorcerer tribe of the sorcerer tribe, the #1 family in the Yulong continent that fell 1,000 years ago. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2289. Page 1/1. She was the daughter of the sorcerer clan from the sorcerer clan, the sorcerer goddess, who had once been famous throughout the 1,000 continents. Hearing Yun Jian's words, everyone present was stunned. Bogi, on the other hand, had obviously heard about the legend of the sorcerer goddess in great detail when he accidentally went to the 1,000 continents 25 years ago. 25 years ago, the sorcerer goddess had yet to return, and Bogi's memories had stopped at the time before the sorcerer goddess's return. That was why Bogi had said, apart from the legendary sorcerer goddess who had fallen 1,000 years ago. However, Boji had never imagined that this extremely ordinary young girl was the daughter of the sorcerer clan from the sorcerer clan of the Yulong continent, the legendary sorcerer goddess who had fallen. Boji panicked. Recalling Yun Jian's previous actions, he had a moment of panic. This young girl should really be the daughter of the sorcerer clan from the Yulong continent. Why are you here? Boji suddenly changed his tone. He bent down and spoke to Yun Jian in a manner that eunuchs used to belittle themselves in front of the emperor. The previously aggressive Boji had actually changed his attitude towards Yun Jian. Horace, Calvin, Felik and the others were shocked when they saw this. That magical beast, where did you get it? Yun Jian ignored Boji's words and asked calmly. Burge's eyes darted around when he heard what Yun Jian said and quickly told her everything he knew. When I went to the Myriad continent, a man in a black robe gave it to me. That man said that as long as I fed the little magical beast he gave me to 10,000 people, that magical beast would listen to me and bring me back to the Myriad continent. Then I would be able to live on the 1,000 continents forever. Boji still had some reservations. Conquering the 1,000 continents was what Boji wanted. However, he could not say that to outsiders. Hearing Boji's information about the man in the black robe, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Where is that person? This was the reason why Yun Jian came to Death Island. Yun Jian didn't come to Death Island to have fun. She came here to find information about the mysterious man. He had learned from Jian Ning's adoptive father that there was a place on the Death Island that led to the residence of the mysterious man. It was also because of this that Yun Jian came here. I don't know the details, but I remember that 25 years ago when I was in the Myriad continent, I secretly followed him after he left. I saw him walk into a place. As long as you promise not to kill me, I will bring you to that place. Maybe we can find it. What Boji feared the most now was being killed by Yun Jian. He wasn't stupid. Among the group of people who had come with Yun Jian, Horace's appearance had been recognized by Boji at first glance. Horace was the only one who had accidentally let him slip away and escaped from Death Island. Since Horace dared to come back, it must be for revenge. I won't kill you. Bring me there, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and said after a flash of light flashed in her eyes. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Horace did not scold Yun Jian for not keeping her promise to avenge him. The group each had their own thoughts. Before heading to the 1,000 continents, which might be the residence of the mysterious man according to Boji, they all stayed on the Death Island. Because Boji was afraid of Yun Jian, he took out the best ingredients on the Death Island to entertain Yun Jian and the others. Yun Jian planned to wait for CE on the Death Island before heading to the 1,000 continents, where the mysterious man lived according to Boji. Top reading website, M. Chapter 2290. At this moment on the God's continent. Bailey family. The Divine Lord's mother, Bailey Yen, rubbed her eyes. Just as she was about to turn over and sit up, she suddenly felt something. She felt that there was someone sleeping next to her. That fleshy feeling was very obvious. There was a living person sleeping next to her. At this moment, Bailey Yen was wearing pajamas, and her smooth and beautiful thighs were exposed. She was lying on her side on the bed, and her beautiful curves were so enchanting and charming that people couldn't take their eyes off her. As it turned out, Bailey Yen was very beautiful. When Bailey Yen woke up and saw the handsome face of the Lord God sleeping next to her, she seemed to be frightened by something. She rolled off the bed and half dragged the quilt with her as she glared at the Lord God with a covetous expression. Why are you here? The Divine Lord propped himself up. The Divine Lord was no longer an old man. At this moment, the Divine Lord was very handsome. He was 80% similar to CE. However, in terms of appearance, the Divine Lord was slightly inferior to CE. Of course, he was only slightly inferior. The Divine Lord in his youthful appearance was still extremely handsome. Bailey Yen looked at his handsome face and blushed slightly. However, she still covered herself with the quilt and pointed at the door as she shouted at the Divine Lord. Get out. You get out. Your injuries are already healed. Hurry up and go back to your temple. Don't let me see you again in the future. We agreed that we would never contact each other again. After all, they were once husband and wife. Even if the Divine Lord had done something very excessive to her in the past, Bailey Yen still let the Divine Lord recuperate in her Bailey family for a long time. This injury was left behind when Yun Jian and CE fought with the mysterious person before entering the God's Spring. Unexpectedly, the Divine Lord's handsome smile curved. He bent down and leaned in front of Bailey Yen. He reached out and pinched Bailey Yen's chin, wanting to kiss her. Bailey Yin wanted to hide, but in the end she did not try her best to escape. After all, she still had feelings for the Lord God. Bailey Yin was gagged by the Lord God. After the kiss, the Lord God looked at Bailey Yin sincerely and sighed. Then he said, "Yin, forgive me. Look, our child is already so big. We even have a child. Why are you still quarreling? Do it with me again, okay?" As he spoke, the Master God stretched out his hand towards Bailey Yin's lapel. "No, I won't forgive you." Bailey Yin glared at the Lord God. However, her mouth was gagged in the end. For some unknown reason, Bailey Yin was once again carried onto the bed by the main god. The reason why Bailey Yin hated the overgod so much was because Bailey Yin felt that she was the one who had been forced to do so from the very beginning. Tens of thousands of years ago, Bailey Yin was the most beautiful young lady on God's continent. At that time, the Master God was already the ruler of the God's continent. Once, after Bailey Yin accompanied her father to attend a gathering in the temple, the Lord God took a fancy to her. Secretly, the Lord God confessed to her, but Bailey Yin rejected him. Later on, the Bailey family's patriarch turned 10,000 years old. Hence they held a gathering. The Lord God gave the Bailey family a lot of face and personally went to the Bailey family to congratulate them. Due to the Lord God's noble status and the fact that he had confessed to her, Bailey Yin was afraid that he would force her to marry him. Hence, she was afraid that she would run into the Lord God. Everyone in the Bailey family was in the Bailey family's main hall. Bailey Yin ran to the Bailey family's backyard alone. However, she had only taken a few steps when she ran into the Lord God. "Are you running away from me?" The Lord God grabbed Bailey Yin's hand and pressed her into a small stone cave in a rockery in the backyard. When she saw the Lord God suddenly appear, Bailey Yin was so frightened that she turned her face to the side. "No, no, do you hate seeing me that much?" When the Lord God saw how Bailey Yin was running away from him, fury welled up in his heart. In the next second he pressed Bailey Yin against the rockery and pressed her body down. He lifted her beautiful legs and did something that Bailey Yin would never forgive him for thousands of years. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.